Every forest holds a secret world beneath its fallen leaves, a world where threads as thin as breath weave through soil, roots, and time. A world where softness becomes strength and silence becomes structure. Tonight, we drift into that hidden kingdom, the peaceful realm of mushrooms. Welcome to AstraFlow. Here, science drifts like starlight, and curiosity becomes calm. Tonight, let your thoughts slow down, your breathing find its rhythm, and your mind float through wonder. Before we begin, I'd love to know where you're listening from. Are you lying in bed under city lights, or watching the stars from somewhere quiet? Tell me in the comments. It's always peaceful to imagine the AstraFlow community scattered across the world, drifting together through the same sky. And if this calm journey brings you peace, you can gently support AstraFlow by liking this video or subscribing. It helps this little corner of the cosmos keep glowing. Now, let's begin tonight's voyage into the quiet story of peaceful facts about mushrooms. Mushrooms are often seen as simple things, a cap, a stem, a momentary visitor after rain. But if you pause long enough, letting your mind soften around their shapes, you might sense something more. A quiet intelligence humming through the earth, a patient presence that grows not by rushing upward, but by drifting outward, thread by thread, breath by breath. In the dark, mushrooms unfold with a calm that feels ancient. They do not chase sunlight, nor do they reach for the sky. Instead, they move through shadow, transforming fallen leaves into soil, and soil into life, and life into stories that forests whisper through their roots. As you lie here, letting your body rest, imagine the ground beneath a sleeping forest, cool, soft, slow. Within it, countless filaments stretch and merge, a glowing web of gentle connection. Each thread, thinner than a hair, carries the memory of rainstorms, the rhythm of seasons, and the quiet pulse of the Earth's oldest conversations. Let that image settle in your mind like warm dusk light. Let it remind you that growth doesn't always happen quickly or loudly. Sometimes the most profound transformations bloom in silence, hidden from sight, moving only as fast as peace allows. In a moment, we'll explore this world more deeply, a world where mushrooms become architects of balance, recyclers of life, and silent communicators beneath our feet. But for now, simply breathe. Feel the air drift into your chest, hold it, release it slowly, like a leaf falling from a branch. The forest is never in a hurry. Tonight, neither are you. As the journey unfolds, we'll wander through glowing mushrooms that light up woodland nights, through vast underground networks wider than cities, through ancient fungal fossils older than trees, and into the soft philosophical spaces where connection, renewal, and rest all begin. Let your mind drift, steady and calm, as we step into this quiet realm together. The world of mushrooms waits softly, ready to show its gentle truths. What does it mean to be connected? Not in the way we usually think, not through words, screens, or voices carried across distance, but through something quieter, something older, something that exists beneath thought, beneath sound, beneath the surface of things. When we walk through a forest, we often see only the visible forms, trunks, branches, leaves stirring gently in the wind. But beneath all of that lies a silent architecture, a living lace of threads that touch almost everything they encounter. And in that vast hidden web, something profoundly ancient is happening. Life is listening to life. Trees are feeling the hunger, the health, the stress of their neighbours. Nutrients flow, signals drift, warnings are sent, and comfort is shared, all through a network that has no face, no voice, no urgency, only presence. That presence is fungi. And tonight, we allow its nature to lead us into a gentle question. What does connection look like when it doesn't need to be seen? As you breathe slowly, imagine connection not as a bright thread, but as a soft hum in the background of existence. Imagine it as something steady, like the quiet rhythm of waves against sand, or the exhale of wind passing through tall grass. Something that doesn't demand attention, but simply lies there, supporting everything else. In our waking lives, we often feel pressured to move fast, to reach out, to respond quickly, to stay visible. But mushrooms and the fungi from which they grow teach a different rhythm. They show us that the most meaningful connections may be the ones that remain underground, unseen, unrushed, unforced, still powerful. The mycelium beneath your feet, if you were standing in a forest right now, would be forming connections with thousands of organisms at once. Tiny roots, insects, bacteria, stones holding moisture, even ancient wood softened by time. Each thread touches the next, and through those threads flows a whisper of communication. I am here. You are here. Let's share what we have. This is not connection made of desire or intention. It is connection made of existence. Simple, inevitable, deeply peaceful. As you lie here listening, imagine the same idea inside yourself. Imagine your own inner networks, your thoughts, your memories, your breath, touching gently, sharing softly, without urgency. Feel the slow drift of breath in your chest, the subtle glow of stillness spreading through your limbs. Every inhale connects you to this moment. Every exhale softens something inside you. If connection can be this quiet in the natural world, perhaps it can be this quiet within us too. Tonight's journey invites you to drift into that softness. To explore the idea that being part of something larger doesn't require noise or effort. It only requires presence. Like the mycelium, you don't need to reach outward with force. You can simply be, and in being, you are part of everything. So as we move forward, let this question rest in the back of your mind like a small warm light. What kind of connection grows best in silence? Let it follow you gently as we begin to explore the hidden world of mushrooms, the quiet kingdom where connection is not spoken, but felt. If you could shrink yourself down and drift through the soil beneath a forest floor, you would discover a world unlike anything above it. Not bright, not loud, not shaped by wind or sunlight, but dim, cool, and quietly alive. A place where threads finer than hair weave through grains of sand, wrap around roots, and slip into tiny cracks in stone. This is the true body of fungi, not the mushrooms we see after rain, but the vast and ancient networks beneath them. Tonight, before we wander through specific stories, we pause here, at the doorway of this hidden world, and offer a gentle overview of how fungi exist, what they do, and why their quiet presence shapes nearly everything on Earth. Mushrooms are only the brief visible moment of a much larger life form. Think of them as the fruit of an underground forest, popping up only when conditions are right. The real organism is the mycelium, a branching web that might stretch for meters or kilometers, or in some cases, across entire landscapes. It hums softly through dark soil, digesting wood, sharing nutrients, and stitching ecosystems together with the patience of centuries. It is growth without haste, expansion without sound. Fungi are recyclers of life. Where a tree falls, fungi arrive. Where leaves gather and decay, fungi feed. Where a creature completes its journey, fungi begin theirs. They turn endings into beginnings, and beginnings into nourishment. They take what the forest releases and transform it into the rich soil that supports the next generation of roots and stems and seeds. And yet they do this without fanfare. No rustling, no glowing arcs of movement, only quiet transformation, the kind that continues even when no one is there to witness it. As you breathe slowly now, imagine the work of fungi unfolding at a pace so gentle it feels like the Earth's own heartbeat. Every thread moves a tiny bit each day. Every connection forms silently. Every exchange of nutrients happens with the stillness of moonlight on water. Fungi are also partners, perhaps the most devoted in nature. They bind themselves to the roots of plants in relationships that are millions of years old. In return for sugars from those roots, fungi deliver water and minerals from distances the plant could never reach alone. This partnership is not competitive or hurried. It is steady, mutual and balanced, a lesson in slow cooperation. And they are storytellers of time. Ancient fossils show fungi rising on land long before animals walked or trees stretched upward. They shaped the early earth, breaking rock into soil, making space for forests that would one day breathe oxygen into the sky. Their story is not just old, it is foundational. Tonight we move gently through this quiet kingdom. We won't rush. We'll let each fact drift like a breeze through soft moss. We'll explore mushrooms that glow like fallen stars, networks that span entire forests, and ideas that remind us how rest and renewal are woven into the fabric of life itself. For now, hold this simple thought close. Fungi are not just part of the world. They are the quiet architects of its balance, the hidden pulse beneath our feet, the soft whisper reminding us that life, in its deepest layers, moves slowly and peacefully. If you could lift a handful of forest soil and see through it, the way light passes through mist, you would find a delicate world of threads glowing faintly beneath your fingers. These threads, thin, white, and endlessly branching, are the mycelium, a quiet architecture spreading beneath forests, meadows, deserts, and even the roots of your own garden plants. It is one of nature's most intricate designs, a living web connecting nearly everything that grows. The mycelium doesn't move quickly. It extends with a slow patience, drifting through soil grain by grain. Each filament, called a hypha, reaches forward like a breath seeking its next gentle exhale. It explores, it senses, it adapts. When it encounters something nourishing, a fallen leaf, a piece of old bark, a droplet of moisture, it grows more densely. When the world grows dry or cold, it waits, curled inside the earth like a slowed heartbeat. In its stillness, the mycelium forms one of the largest biological networks on our planet. Some fungal webs stretch only a few meters, others span entire hillsides, and a few, the truly ancient ones, extend across kilometers of forest soil, forming organisms so vast they defy imagination, not through strength or force, but through quiet persistence. Scientists often describe the mycelium as nature's internet, but that comparison, though helpful, only hints at its wonder. Like an internet, it connects many beings. Like an internet, it carries information. But unlike anything humans have built, its connections are alive. They breathe. They change with the seasons. They carry not just signals, but nutrients, memory, and a kind of distributed awareness. Imagine roots of different trees touching this web. One tree stands in sunlight, strong and full. Another stands in shade, hungry for what it cannot reach. Through the mycelium, sugar flows from the strong tree to the weak one, not because a command was sent, not because decisions were made, but because the system itself seeks balance. This is the quiet generosity of the forest, mediated by fungi, powered by togetherness. As you breathe in slowly now, imagine that same sense of balance inside yourself. Your inhale gathers what is needed, your exhale softens what is tense. This simple exchange mirrors the forest more closely than we realize. Life supports life, breath supports breath, and the mycelium reminds us that connection does not need noise to be profound. The threads of this fungal web also serve as explorers. They sense chemicals in soil, detect shifts in moisture, and move toward nutrients with a precision that seems almost intelligent. Not intelligence in the human sense, No thoughts, no words, no plans, but a responsiveness shaped by 1 billion years of quiet evolution. If you close your eyes, you might imagine the network as a soft, glowing map beneath the forest floor. Lines branching, lines merging, lines touching roots like whispers of comfort. From above, a passerby might see only trees and moss, but below, a community hums gently in the dark, sharing what it has, repairing what breaks, tending to the forest the way a caretaker tends to a sleeping child. Mycelium teaches us that connection is not always a bright flash or a loud message. Sometimes connection feels like nourishment moving silently where it is needed. Sometimes it feels like a presence that asks nothing and gives freely. Sometimes it feels like a slow, steady glow in the deepest part of us. As we drift onward tonight, keep that image close. The web under the world, the softness that holds life together, the threads of connection that mirror our own quiet longing for rest, balance, and belonging. If you stand in a quiet forest and listen long enough, you might think nothing is speaking. No words drift through the air, no voices echo between the trees. But beneath the silence, life is carrying on a conversation that has lasted for millions of years. Soft, steady, and spoken through threads of mycelium stretching beneath the earth. Fungi are often described as the communication system of the forest, and while this metaphor is imperfect, it captures something gentle and true. They help trees, shrubs, and plants share what they cannot share alone. They allow one part of the forest to feel the conditions of another. They turn isolated individuals into a connected whole, balancing the needs of an ecosystem with the quiet precision of a whisper moving through still air. Imagine 2 trees standing side by side, one basking in warm sunlight, its branches wide and full, the other growing in shadow, thin and hungry. Through the fungal network, nutrients drift from the strong to the struggling, not out of conscious charity, but out of a deep biological cooperation. It is the forest's version of a slow, steady exhale, giving where giving is needed. The communication doesn't stop at nutrients. When a tree is attacked by pests, chemicals travel into the soil. The mycelium senses the change and carries warning signals to neighbouring trees. Those trees, receiving the message, begin producing defensive compounds hours or days before the threat ever reaches them. It is a reminder that the forest is not a collection of lonely beings, but a quiet community, held together by fungal threads softer than strands of hair. As you breathe in gently, imagine those invisible messages drifting like mist beneath the ground, not rushed, not loud, just passing on what needs to be known, information carried not in words, but in the subtle chemistry of life itself. This fungal communication mirrors something in our own lives. We often imagine connection as something that must be spoken, articulated, or performed. But sometimes the deepest forms of communication are simpler. A presence in a room, a shared silence, a gentle understanding that doesn't need language. Like the forest, we communicate in ways we don't always notice, through breath, posture, energy, and stillness. Fungi teach us that even in silence, messages can move with grace. They remind us that support does not need to announce itself to be meaningful, and they show that the strength of a community lies not in the loudness of its voices, but in the softness of its connections. If you close your eyes now, picture the forest floor as a dark, cool world where threads run like glowing veins. A fallen leaf lands, and the message spreads, nutrients arriving. Rain falls, and the threads swell slightly, carrying the good news of water. A branch breaks in a storm, and the surrounding trees sense changes in the soil, adjusting slowly, calmly. Nothing is frantic here, nothing rushes. Even communication happens at the pace of deep rest, unhurried, rhythmic, and in harmony with the slow turning of seasons. As you drift further into tonight's journey, let this idea settle gently inside you. Communication does not always need sound. Sometimes the most profound exchanges happen in quiet spaces, in the soft, unseen threads that connect us all, just beneath the surface. When we imagine growth, we often imagine movement, leaves stretching towards sunlight, waves rising and falling, clouds drifting across the sky. But fungal growth is different. It moves so slowly, so quietly, that it feels less like motion and more like a pulse, a gentle rhythm unfolding deep beneath the surface. If you could watch mycelium in time-lapse, it would appear as a soft, glowing lace spreading outward in every direction, not rushing, not pushing, just exploring, sensing and expanding with the patience of the earth itself. Each hypha stretches forward at a pace too subtle for the human eye, growing by fractions of millimeters, guided by chemical signals, moisture and memory imprinted over millions of years. This slow expansion is one of the most peaceful processes in nature. It reflects a way of living that asks for nothing sudden, nothing forced. The fungus doesn't hurry to claim space. It simply follows the path of nourishment, thread by thread, allowing itself to become a part of its surroundings rather than overtaking them. As you breathe in gently, imagine that slow pulse as a quiet light in the dark. With every inhale, see the mycelium expanding softly. With every exhale, imagine it resting, then drifting forward again. Its rhythm mirrors the natural cadence of breath, the same cadence that helps your body relax into sleep. Fungal growth is not a straight line. It branches, it curves. It pauses when the soil dries or hardens, conserving energy with patience. It resumes when the world becomes soft again, after rain, after dusk, after the forest cools. There is a lesson here. Growth can be seasonal, gentle and unhurried. It does not always need to be visible to be real. Under a log, mycelium threads may take months to weave through the wood. In richer soil, growth quickens slightly, as if the earth itself is encouraging it. In harsh environments, deserts, frozen forests, high mountains, fungi grow at a pace so slow that it feels like the passing of time itself. And yet, they persist. Not through force, but through consistency. This quiet endurance is one of the reasons fungi have survived for more than 1 billion years. They don't compete loudly. They don't dominate. They adapt. They find the smallest openings, a crack in bark, a pocket of moisture, a fallen leaf beginning to soften, and gently thread themselves through. If you close your eyes now, imagine yourself moving with that same softness. No pushing, no straining. Only drifting through the spaces where life feels open, where rest feels natural, where your thoughts can move with the calm steadiness of the forest floor at night. You might picture the hyphae as tiny luminous paths, branching and rebranching like a constellation beneath the earth. Each branch represents a possibility. Some fade, some flourish. All are accepted as part of the journey. There's a quiet wisdom in this, a reminder that our own growth does not need to be uniform or linear. Some days we move forward, some days we rest, and both are part of being alive. As the mycelium pulses slowly through the dark, it teaches that progress measured in tiny steps is still progress, that the smallest motions can reshape entire ecosystems, and that life, at its most peaceful, unfolds gently, without urgency, without noise, and without needing to be seen. Let that softness settle into your breath as we continue our journey, moving deeper into the quiet world of mushrooms, where every moment unfolds at the pace of peace. In the quiet corners of the forest, where fallen leaves gather like soft blankets and old branches rest in shadow, fungi begin their most essential work. It is not a dramatic task. There is no sound, no visible motion, no flash of transformation. And yet, What mushrooms do in these hidden places shapes every forest, every meadow, every garden on Earth. They are the recyclers of life, the gentle alchemists who turn endings into beginnings. When a tree finally lies down after decades or centuries of standing tall, the world does not rush to dismantle it. The wind cannot break it completely. Rain softens it slowly, but not enough. Even insects nibble only at the edges, but fungi drifting through the soil sense the tree's presence. They move toward it in tiny, patient steps, like a slow breath filling a resting chest. Hyphae enter the wood through microscopic cracks. They weave through its fibres, releasing enzymes that dissolve the walls of once living cells. What was rigid becomes soft. What was solid becomes nourishment, and what once stood against storms becomes part of the earth again. Rich, dark, fertile. This is not destruction. This is renewal. Fungi break things down so that life can rise again. They turn fallen leaves into nutrients for seedlings. They turn expired roots into food for worms and insects. They transform the forest floor into a cradle for the next generation of saplings. If you breathe slowly now, you might picture it like a gentle tide. Material flows back into the soil, carried not by waves but by fungal threads beneath your feet. The forest inhales, drawing nourishment into its roots. The forest exhales, sending new growth toward the sky. Mushrooms are part of that cycle, quiet, steady, essential. In this way, fungi help maintain balance. Without them, forests would drown in their own fallen debris. Trees would struggle to absorb nutrients locked in old wood. Life would stagnate under the weight of its own remnants. But with fungi at work, nothing lingers beyond its time. Every fallen branch, every withered leaf, every forgotten seed pod becomes an offering to the cycle of renewal. The forest floor becomes a place where time folds gently into itself. Past becoming present, present becoming future. Fungi do this work everywhere, not just in forests. In grasslands, they break down tough roots after drought. In tundra soils, they slowly soften moss and lichen that survive winter after winter. In deserts, they wait for moisture, then awaken to reclaim the smallest scraps of organic matter. Even in your own garden, they lean into the earth, turning plant debris into fertile soil that lets new shoots rise. There is something deeply comforting in this, a reminder that endings are not empty, not wasted. They are simply transitions, shifts in form, in purpose, in energy. As you relax deeper now, imagine let-go moments in your life the way the forest imagines fallen leaves. Not as losses, but as transformations. As material that will one day nourish something new, as part of a cycle that is gentle, natural, and endlessly repeating. Fungi show us that renewal doesn't require force, it unfolds quietly, softly, at its own pace, and always, always with the promise that what fades will feed what comes next. As we drift forward into our next chapter, hold this peaceful truth close. In the world of mushrooms, nothing is wasted. Everything finds its way back into the flow. Long before forests rose, long before leaves unfurled, long before any creature walked or swam or breathed, fungi were already here. They emerged in a world that looked nothing like the earth we know, a place of barren rock, quiet seas, and young continents still cooling under a restless sky. In that ancient silence, where life was only beginning to experiment with shape and form, mushrooms and their ancestors were among the first to claim the land. To imagine fungi 1 billion years ago is to imagine a world of almost complete stillness. No birds, no trees, no flowers blooming in morning light. Only wind moving across empty stone, and tides brushing against shores that had never known a forest's shade. And yet, even there, life was unfolding in its patient way. Tiny fungal organisms spread across the rocks, releasing acids that slowly broke the stone into soil. Grain by grain, they prepared the ground for the plants that would come hundreds of millions of years later. They were Earth's quiet pioneers, shaping the land not through force, but through slow persistence. As you breathe softly now, imagine those ancient fungal threads reaching outward beneath a sky untouched by birds. Imagine the first hints of soil forming under their patient touch. The earth, still young and raw, slowly becoming a place where roots could one day settle, where forests could rise, where life could breathe deeper. When the first plants arrived on land, they did not come alone. Fungi were already waiting, ready to form the same partnerships they still form today. Through mycorrhizal connections, those intimate bonds between fungal threads and plant roots, early plants gained the ability to draw nutrients from unforgiving soil. Fungi offered minerals and moisture, plants offered sugars, energy shaped from sunlight, and together they built the first green landscapes on Earth. It is peaceful to think that the forests we know today, the moss-covered groves, the towering pines, the fields of wildflowers, were all made possible by relationships forged in deep time, by organisms that learned to grow slowly, cooperatively and quietly. Fungi have survived every mass extinction. They endured ice ages, volcanic winters, and the long, star-filled nights when Earth was a very different place. Through all of it, they adapted again and again, always moving with a calm persistence that feels almost like wisdom. There is a comfort in that continuity, in knowing that the mushrooms we see after rain are part of a lineage older than the tallest mountains, older than insects, older than trees, older than the very idea of a forest. When you walk in nature, every soft mushroom rising from the soil is a survivor of stories far older than our own. If you close your eyes, you might imagine those ancient fungal forms glowing faintly across the surface of early Earth. They were not grand or towering. They were quiet, thin as threads, but their presence shaped everything that followed. In the same way, the quiet, patient parts of our own lives often support the most meaningful growth. Moments of stillness, moments of waiting, moments of simply being present. Fungi remind us that longevity is not born from speed. It is born from resilience, from adaptability, and from growing gently into each new era with an open, unhurried rhythm. As we drift forward into the next chapter of this journey, let the age of fungi settle into your thoughts like ancient sunlight softening across stone. Life has been slow and patient for far longer than it has been fast, and in that slowness there is peace. If you were to wander through a forest on a moonless night, no lantern, no stars, only the quiet hush of darkness, you might notice something faint glowing beneath the trees, a soft green shimmer along a log, a cluster of tiny lights at the base of a stump, a gentle radiance spreading across fallen wood like stardust settling into the earth. These are bioluminescent mushrooms, fungi that glow in the dark, turning the forest floor into a landscape of quiet constellations. Their glow is not bright enough to guide a traveller. It doesn't pierce the night the way fireflies do or glint like a distant cabin window. Instead, it feels like a memory of light, soft, low, steady. Like the afterglow of something peaceful that refuses to disappear. The chemical reaction behind their glow is simple. Oxygen plus luciferin speed, an enzyme called luciferase. But the feeling of the glow is anything but simple. It carries the same hush as the moment after rain, the same softness as breath drifting through dusk, the same ancient calm that fungi have always held. As you breathe slowly now, imagine that gentle green glow spreading through a sleeping forest. Not urgent, not sharp, just a faint illumination, enough to outline the curve of a leaf or the grain of old bark. At night, the forest becomes a cathedral of quiet light, and mushrooms serve as its smallest lanterns. No one knows for certain why fungi glow. Some scientists believe the light attracts insects that help spread their spores. Others think the glow deters animals from eating them, and some theories suggest the light is simply a byproduct of how fungi break down wood, an accidental beauty created by ancient chemistry. Whatever the reason, the effect is mesmerizing. Imagine walking through a grove where dozens of glowing caps rise through the moss like tiny moons, each one a little beacon, pulsing with the same slow rhythm as your breath. If you let your mind drift, you might imagine each mushroom as a star that has fallen from the sky and decided to root itself in the earth. In some forests, you can find glowing mycelium too, thread-like filaments sparkling beneath bark, tracing intricate pathways under decaying logs. People call it foxfire or fairy fire. Long ago, travellers used these glowing pieces of wood to light their way through deep woods. Natural soft lantern that never flickered, never burned the hand, never exhausted its flame. There is something deeply peaceful about the idea that the forest lights itself from within, that in the darkest hours when every creature rests and even the wind seems to pause, fungi keep a quiet radiance alive, not to dazzle, not to dominate, just to glow, softly, gently, endlessly. In our own lives, we often think of light as something bright and powerful, but mushrooms remind us that light can also be subtle, a gentle reassurance, a calm presence, a quiet warmth that doesn't demand attention, but offers comfort all the same. As you rest here listening, picture that soft bioluminescence settling into your thoughts, little points of calm drifting through your mind like tiny stars, a glow that doesn't chase away the darkness, but harmonizes with it, just as mushrooms do. Because sometimes the most peaceful lights are the ones that shine quietly, deep in the stillness, reminding us that even in darkness, something gentle is always glowing. If you think of mushrooms only as soft browns and gentle creams, the forest is waiting to surprise you. Because beneath canopies of moss and dew, mushrooms carry colours that seem painted by twilight itself, hues so quiet, so unexpected. They feel like secrets whispered to anyone who pauses long enough to notice. Some mushrooms rise with caps the colour of deep plum, glowing softly in the wet light after rain. Others unfold in tender oranges, like embers cooling at the edge of a dying fire, and some shimmer with blues so delicate they seem borrowed from dusk, from that fleeting moment when day exhales into night. These colours are not loud, they do not demand attention. They rest gently in the landscape, blending into earth and bark and shadow, until you lean closer, breathe softer, and let your eyes adjust to the forest's pace. If you were to kneel beside a fallen log, you might find a fan of bracket fungi arranged like layered watercolour, soft greys fading into moss green, into ochre, into a dusty violet so subtle it almost disappears. These patterns are fractal, repeating shapes in smaller and smaller scales, like waves folding into waves or breath blending into breath. As you breathe slowly now, imagine running your gaze along the underside of a mushroom cap. There, you'd find gills arranged in perfect symmetry, thin lines radiating outward like spokes of moonlight, each one a corridor for spores to drift into the air. Sometimes they're pale ivory, sometimes golden, sometimes almost black like the shadow of a shadow. The forest floor is filled with these quiet patterns, delicate wrinkles along a chanterelle, the honeycomb pores beneath a bolete, the coral-like branching of fungi that rise like tiny underwater reefs. Each structure grows with deliberate slowness, shaped by moisture, by temperature, by the soft chemistry of decay and renewal. Some mushrooms shimmer with iridescence when touched by morning dew, a rainbow sheen that fades as quickly as it appears. Others glow with velvety matte textures that absorb the light around them, giving them a softness that feels more like fabric than flesh. There are mushrooms shaped like parchment, mushrooms shaped like stars, mushrooms shaped like miniature cups holding dew from last night's fog. If you close your eyes, you might picture a forest seen from above, patches of green and brown, and within them, hidden bursts of quiet colour. The kind of colours nature saves for places where human footsteps rarely wander. The kind of patterns that exist only for those willing to slow down. These shapes and shades serve purposes the mushrooms themselves never hurry to reveal. Some colours warn animals to stay away. Others help the fungi blend into bark and leaf litter, protecting them from curious eyes. Some patterns maximise the release of spores in damp conditions. Others gather droplets of water like tiny vessels, keeping the fungus alive just a little longer. But beyond their function, there is a softness in these details, a reminder that beauty doesn't need intention. It simply appears wherever life is allowed to unfold quietly. As you rest deeper now, let these hidden colours settle into your thoughts. Imagine them drifting like gentle brushstrokes through your mind, the plum of a twilight cap, the gold of a chanterelle's folds, the pale blue shimmer of a mushroom touched by dawn. Let them remind you that the world holds more softness than we often notice, more subtlety, more quiet beauty tucked into the corners where life moves slowly. In the realm of mushrooms, nothing is brightly announced. Everything reveals itself in stillness, patient, understated, and perfectly at peace. If you hold a mushroom gently in your hand, just for a moment, just long enough to notice its softness, you might wonder how something so delicate, so silent, could be alive at all. It has no lungs, no chest rising and falling, no breath you can see. And yet, it breathes. Quietly. Steadily, in harmony with the rhythm of the forest itself, mushrooms and the mycelium beneath them take in oxygen and release carbon dioxide just like animals do. But they do this without a single moving part. No inhale, no exhale. Only a steady exchange of gases drifting across their thin cell walls, like mist passing through the branches of a sleeping tree. As you breathe slowly now, imagine the air around you growing softer, each inhale gentle, each exhale like a leaf loosening its hold on a branch. The way you breathe is not so different from the way mushrooms exist, simply allowing the world to move through them, calmly, patiently, without resistance. Fungi breathe through tiny pores, their surfaces acting as gateways where air meets life. The process is constant, unhurried, and deeply quiet. If you could shrink yourself to the size of a fungal hypha and drift along its surface, you would see oxygen dissolving into its cells like a slow, luminous fog, feeding the organism's endless network beneath the soil. Where animals breathe to fuel movement, fungi breathe to maintain presence. They are not racing, they are not chasing, they are simply being, growing only as quickly as the world allows, conserving energy when conditions change and always staying connected to the earth that holds them. If you close your eyes, picture the forest floor after rain. Moist air hovers above the soil, leaves glisten. The earth provides a gentle breath of its own, rich with scents of moss and bark and the faint sweetness of decay. Within that moist air, fungi breathe most easily. Moisture opens their pathways. Warmth activates their enzymes. In those moments, their slow metabolism begins to hum a little brighter, and the forest's quiet pulse grows stronger. This subtle respiration shapes the world around them. As fungi break down fallen wood and leaves, their breathing helps release nutrients back into the soil. Every breath they take plays a part in the grand cycle of renewal, the transformation of old matter into the fertile ground that feeds new roots. And their respiration, small as it seems, influences entire ecosystems. The carbon dioxide they release nourishes nearby plants. The oxygen they consume helps regulate the delicate balance of gases in the soil. Even the temperature of decomposing logs rises slightly when fungi breathe, a quiet warmth that shelters insects and seeds through cool nights. There is something profoundly peaceful about this. A life form that breathes without sound, that grows without urgency, that contributes without seeking recognition. It exists simply by being part of the earth, taking in what it needs, offering back what it can. As you lie here listening, let your own breathing soften in response. Let it mirror the mushroom's gentle rhythm, the quiet exchange that sustains life without noise or effort. A reminder that your breath too is enough, steady, natural, unrushed. Fungi teach us that living doesn't always require striving. Sometimes existence is as simple and as sacred as breath passing quietly through the spaces in between. If mushrooms are the quiet storytellers of the forest, then spores are the whispers they release into the world. Tiny, invisible to the human eye, lighter than dust, gentler than breath, spores drift through the air with the softness of snowfall, carrying with them the possibility of new life. A single mushroom can release millions of spores in one night, not with force, not with noise, but through a delicate rain that falls upward and outward, disappearing into breezes that wander between branches. They rise like tiny grains of twilight. They scatter like dreams loosening from the mind just before sleep. As you breathe slowly now, imagine yourself standing in a quiet clearing, just after dusk. You lift your gaze to a cluster of mushrooms beneath a fallen log. If the light were just right, you might see a faint, shimmering mist rising from the gills. Not smoke, not fog, but the subtle exhale of the forest preparing for tomorrow. Spores are to fungi what seeds are to plants. But they do not wait for flowers or seasons to guide them. They ride the slightest currents, a sigh of wind, the flap of a bird's wing, the soft turbulence from a passing animal. A spore can travel meters, or miles, or simply settle inches away, resting where the world feels ready to hold it. Once a spore finds the right combination of moisture, warmth, and shelter, it awakens. A tiny thread emerges, the first hypha, so small, so delicate it almost seems imaginary. But it grows, it reaches outward, and slowly it becomes mycelium, spreading and connecting, taking part in the endless cycle of renewal. There is something poetic in how spores trust the world. They do not cling tightly to where they came from. They let go completely, surrendering to chance, to wind, to softness. A reminder that sometimes drifting is not the same as being lost. Sometimes it is simply the beginning of becoming. If you close your eyes, you might picture spores as tiny floating lights, each one carrying a quiet intention: to grow, to join, to transform. In the forest, spores settle in places that seem impossibly small: a fold of bark, the shadow beneath a stone, the thin layer of soil gathered in a footprint left by a deer. And yet, life begins there too. Fungi do not need perfect conditions to exist. They only need stillness, moisture, and time. Some spores remain dormant for years, waiting through cycles of rain and drought, through winter, frost, and summer heat. They rest with patience, knowing that the right moment will one day arrive, and when it does, growth begins with a softness that mirrors your own slow breathing, your own readiness to drift into rest. In a way, spores embody the deepest rhythm of nature, the quiet faith that tiny beginnings can lead to vast, interconnected worlds. That life's most powerful expansions often start with something nearly invisible, that the smallest particles can change landscapes, shape ecosystems, and create entire forests of possibility. As you lie here listening, let the image of drifting spores settle into your thoughts. Imagine your worries floating away with them, carried gently on unseen currents. Imagine new beginnings forming quietly, patiently, without pressure or expectation. Just possibility, spreading softly through the mind's night air. Mushrooms remind us that life does not always begin with a loud rival. Sometimes it begins with a quiet drift, a gentle release, a letting go that allows something new to take root. Beneath certain forests, where the ground feels soft underfoot and the air carries the scent of moss and old rain, there are beings growing so vast, so ancient, that no single glance could ever reveal them. They do not stand tall. They do not roar or move or announce themselves. They exist quietly, spread out under the soil like continents made of threads. These are the giant fungal organisms, some of the largest and oldest living beings on Earth. If you could peel back the forest floor like the page of a book, you would see them. Mycelial networks stretching farther than the roots of all nearby trees combined. Some cover dozens of hectares, others span entire slopes of mountains. One in Oregon stretches across more than 2,000 acres, an organism millions of years old, living so slowly that its lifetime feels closer to geological time than biological time. And yet, despite their vastness, these organisms remain unseen. No single mushroom betrays their true scale. Each fruiting body is like a tiny punctuation mark in a story too long for one lifetime to read. As you breathe softly now, imagine standing in such a forest. Imagine knowing that beneath your feet, a single being unfurls through soil and stone, not in straight lines, but in branching rivers of life, drifting outward with the patience of mountains. Its presence is steady, its pulse is slow, its age is older than the memories of the land itself. These enormous fungal networks sustain entire ecosystems. Their hyphae weave through roots, sharing minerals with young saplings. They break down fallen trunks that would otherwise take centuries to decay. They hold moisture during droughts, releasing it back into the soil like a calm sigh. And through all of this they remain hidden, content in the shadows beneath the forest surface. There is something humbling about encountering an organism that exists on such a scale. We are used to thinking of the largest beings as those that stretch toward the sky, whales that roam vast oceans, trees that tower above canopies. But fungi redefine that idea. Their enormity is horizontal, not vertical. They do not rise. They spread. They do not reach outward to dominate. They seep into the world gently, finding pathways of least resistance, merging with the landscape rather than standing apart from it. If you close your eyes, you might picture their mycelium as glowing rivers beneath the earth, slow-moving currents of life flowing just beneath the surface, each thread connecting to the next, forming a tapestry as intricate as neural networks in a dreaming mind. Scientists have even compared these vast organisms to a brain of the forest, not because they think like we do, but because they respond, adapt, and maintain balance with astonishing sensitivity. Their immense presence reminds us that greatness does not always reveal itself in visible form, that something can be powerful without being loud, vast without being seen, enduring without demanding attention. As you settle deeper into rest, let that idea soften inside you. That your own depth, your own inner landscape, contains networks just as intricate, thoughts, memories, quiet strengths that do not need to be displayed to be real, growth that happens in silence, resilience that forms over years, calmness that spreads slowly, softly, like mycelium weaving through soil. In the world of fungi, being unseen does not mean being small, being quiet does not mean lacking strength, and moving slowly does not mean standing still. As we drift forward, remember that some of the most extraordinary beings on Earth live their entire lives beneath our feet, invisible, patient, and immeasurably vast. There is a special quiet that fills the forest after rain, a softness settling over leaves, a gentle hush replacing the rustle of dry branches. In that peaceful moment when the world feels freshly washed and every fragrance rises from the soil, mushrooms begin their quiet emergence. It is as if the rain has whispered a secret only they can hear. Fungi and rain share an ancient friendship. Moisture awakens the mycelium, softening soil, loosening wood fibres, and opening tiny passages where hyphae can move more freely. In the days after rainfall, the forest floor becomes a cradle of possibility, and mushrooms rise like small breaths of the earth becoming visible. As you breathe slowly now, imagine droplets sliding down the bark of a tall tree, gathering at its base, sinking gently into moss. Below the surface, that moisture touches the mycelium, and something stirs. Not a rush, not a sudden leap, but a quiet readiness, a signal that conditions are right for transformation. Many mushrooms appear almost overnight after rain, but this does not mean they grow quickly in a frantic burst of energy. Instead, they have been preparing for days or weeks beneath the soil, forming the beginnings of caps and stems hidden from sight. Rain is simply the final invitation, the moment the world says, "You may rise now." Young mushrooms push upward with a careful strength. They expand the way a slow inhale fills the chest, patient and unhurried. Some come up in clusters, like families moving together through the dark. Others rise alone, a single quiet presence among leaves and fallen branches. If you close your eyes, you might picture the forest at dawn after a storm. The air is cool, carrying the scent of wet earth. Mist clings to the ground, and among the moss and twigs new mushrooms stand like small lanterns, each one a reminder of how gently life can emerge when the world is soft. Rain does more than awaken mushrooms. It nourishes spores waiting in silence. It melts old leaf litter into a rich, welcoming bed for fungal growth. It cools the forest just enough to slow the breath of decay, giving fungi time to digest and transform the world at their own pace. In some forests, the appearance of mushrooms is so closely tied to rainfall that whole seasons unfold around their rhythms. Monsoon forests where fungi erupt in waves, temperate woodlands where autumn rains bring carpets of caps in every shape and colour, tropical jungles where mist and storms keep mycelium humming year-round. There is a peaceful symmetry in this cycle. The sky sends water to the earth. The earth invites fungi to rise. The fungi feed the forest, and the forest lifts its leaves toward the sky once more. A loop of support, quiet and continuous. As you rest deeper into this moment, let the image of mushrooms in the rain settle gently into your thoughts. Imagine each droplet as a soft touch on the earth, each fresh mushroom as a small reminder that renewal often follows surrender, that after storms something tender always finds its way upward. Mushrooms teach us that resilience does not need to appear as strength or speed. Sometimes it looks like waiting patiently for the right moment. Sometimes it feels like emerging only when the world is gentle enough to hold you. And when the rain arrives, life unfolds again, quietly, steadily, beautifully. In every forest, fallen logs rest like slow-moving rivers of time. Their bark softens, their colours deepen. Tiny cracks appear along their length, each one a quiet doorway into the past. To most eyes, a fallen tree is the end of a story, but for fungi, it is the beginning of one. Wood is a memory. It holds the history of seasons, storms, droughts, and sunlight. Its rings are like soft echoes of years gone by, and when a tree finally returns to the earth, fungi step forward as gentle guides, turning memory into nourishment. As you breathe gently now, imagine a fallen log lying on the forest floor. Moss grows along its spine. Rain beads on its surface. In its shadows, tiny openings wait, spaces where mycelium has already begun to weave. Not loudly, not aggressively, just slowly, as if stitching together the loosened edges of time. Fungi are the only organisms capable of breaking down lignin, one of the toughest substances in nature. It is what gives wood its strength, the same resilience that lets trees stand for decades, sometimes centuries. But fungi, patient in ways most life forms are not, release enzymes that soften lignan's grip. They dissolve walls that once held water, sunlight, and the breath of the living tree. Inside the wood, the process feels almost dreamlike. Hyphae wander through old vessels and fibres, exploring like quiet travellers moving through the halls of an abandoned cathedral. They sense pockets of moisture. They follow pathways of weakened wood. Each step they take is a transformation, turning something rigid into something receptive. If you close your eyes, imagine the interior of the log glowing faintly with life. The mycelium spreads like a soft white frost, illuminated by the moisture held within. It works without hurry, without expectation, knowing that time is on its side. A log may lie for 10 years, or 20, or 50. And still, fungi continue their gentle work, turning the hard into the soft, the old into the possible. As the wood breaks down, it becomes a shelter for countless small lives. Beetles carve tiny channels through it, like artists etching their initials into time. Millipedes wander through its folds. Ants build chambers inside the softened heartwood. And all the while, fungi continue weaving, dissolving, transforming. Eventually the log becomes something new, a cradle of soil rich enough to nourish saplings. Young trees grow from the body of the old one, their roots reaching into what was once wood but is now earth. In this way the cycle closes softly, like a quiet breath returning to the chest. There is a peaceful wisdom in this transformation. The forest does not mourn what falls. It does not rush to cover it. It waits. It trusts fungi to perform their patient alchemy, turning endings into beginnings again and again. As you relax deeper now, let that cycle mirror something within you. Moments that felt fallen, parts of life that have softened with time, experiences that seemed like endings but quietly became fertile soil for new growth. Transformation often happens slowly beneath the surface, with a patience we rarely see. Fungi remind us that even the heaviest parts of our past can be turned into nourishment, that what feels solid and unmoving will someday soften, and that from what once seemed finished, something new can always rise. If you walk through a forest and feel a sense of harmony, a quiet balance between shadow and light, between soil and sky, you are sensing a relationship that has shaped life for hundreds of millions of years. A partnership older than flowers, older than birds, older even than the towering trees themselves. It is the ancient symbiosis between fungi and roots, a bond so deep and gentle that the forest could not exist without it. Beneath every tree, hidden from sight, a meeting takes place. Tree roots stretch downward like searching fingers, while mycelium extends upward like soft threads of dusk. When they touch, something remarkable happens. A connection forms, intimate, steady, and mutually sustaining. The fungi wrap around the roots, or sometimes slip inside them, forming structures that look almost like delicate braids under a microscope. This is the mycorrhizal partnership, nature's quiet handshake. As you breathe softly now, imagine that moment of contact, the warm pulse of the tree, the cool drift of the fungal thread, merging into a single network where each supports the other. There is no competition here, no urgency, only exchange. Trees feed fungi with sugars gathered from sunlight, sweetness shaped from air, water, and the slow alchemy of leaves. In return, fungi deliver minerals the tree cannot reach alone: phosphorus from distant soil, nitrogen from hidden pockets of earth, water held deep within the ground. The mycelium becomes an extension of the tree's body, expanding its reach by many meters, sometimes many kilometers. Through this partnership, entire forests share resources. A sapling in deep shade struggling to find its place may receive sugars from an older tree bathed in sunlight. Roots would never stretch far enough to make this exchange on their own, but the fungal network, thin as breath yet vast as a dream, carries the gift from one life to another. If you close your eyes, imagine walking beneath a canopy, where every leaf is supported not just by the tree it belongs to, but by the quiet generosity of the entire forest. Imagine the roots humming with shared nutrients, the mycelium glowing softly as it moves water from the damp soil under one tree to the thirsting roots of another. This is community at its most natural, a circle of giving held together by fungi. Some scientists call this the wood wide web, but the name barely captures the tenderness of the relationship. This network doesn't simply transmit information, it transmits care. It allows trees to sense the well-being of their neighbours, to adjust their growth, even to prepare for changing seasons. In times of drought, the fungal threads act like tiny reservoirs, holding water the way moss holds dew. During storms, the mycelium spreads signals through chemicals and ions, warning distant roots of stress. In winter, the network slows but never sleeps, storing nutrients like quiet hope beneath the frozen ground. There is a peaceful lesson in this. Strength is not always solitary. Resilience is often shared. Connection, gentle, steady, and unseen, can be the foundation that lets life grow tall. As you settle deeper into rest, imagine yourself as part of such a network, supported quietly, connected softly, sharing what you can, receiving what you need, breathing in, breathing out, as naturally as trees and fungi breathe into each other. In the forest, no tree stands alone, and no fungus thrives without partnership. Their union reminds us that harmony does not require noise, only presence, patience, and the willingness to grow together. When we think of mushrooms, it's easy to picture the ones we know well. The gentle curve of a button mushroom, the earthy fragrance of shiitake, the golden folds of chanterelles that appear in autumn markets. These familiar mushrooms carry a sense of comfort, a quiet reminder of warm meals and simple nourishment. But the world of fungi is vast, and for every species we safely enjoy, countless others remain mysterious, powerful, or simply unknown. Edible mushrooms are gifts from the forest, shaped slowly by moisture, soil, and time. They draw minerals from the earth, transform them through the patient chemistry of the mycelium, and offer themselves to the world with soft texture and subtle flavour. To eat an edible mushroom is to taste a piece of the forest's quiet work. The rain, the bark, the breath of the soil. As you breathe gently now, imagine holding a freshly picked mushroom in your hands, its surface cool, its scent earthy, almost sweet, its weight light but certain, like something that grew exactly as it needed to, without rush or resistance. Cooking it releases clouds of aroma, a warm, comforting steam carrying traces of the forest after rain. Many cultures have cherished mushrooms for centuries. In Japan, matsutake and maitake are prized symbols of autumn. In Eastern Europe, families wander deep forests to gather porcini as if following an old tradition etched into memory. In China, wood ear mushrooms simmer in broths believed to nourish the body. And in countless kitchens around the world, sautéed mushrooms bring warmth to the table. But beyond these safe, beloved species lies a world of caution. For fungi do not announce whether they are safe or dangerous. Some mushrooms mimic edible varieties with near-perfect precision, differing only in subtle patterns or faint colour shifts. Their toxins, evolved long before humans ever touched the soil, remain potent and invisible. This quiet duality, nourishment and danger, comfort and caution, is part of what makes fungi so mysterious. They invite us close, but ask us to move slowly, to look carefully, to respect the lines between what is known and what is not. If you close your eyes, imagine the forest offering two mushrooms side by side, one a gentle ally, one a silent threat, both beautiful, both quiet, both shaped by the same rain, the same soil, the same moonlit nights. It is only through knowledge and patience that we learn their differences. For foragers, the forest becomes a teacher of humility. They study gills, smell, colour, texture. They learn to recognise the faintest clues, the way a cat bruises, the shape of a stem, the pattern beneath the gills. They carry books, memories and stories passed down like soft warnings through generations. And they walk slowly, respectfully, knowing that fungi reward care but punish haste. This balance mirrors many things in life. Not everything that appears gentle is safe. Not everything that looks similar is the same. And some of the greatest nourishment comes from the things we approach with curiosity and caution, hand in hand. As you settle deeper into rest, let that idea soften inside you. The world is full of gifts, but also full of mysteries. Knowing the difference requires attention, presence, and a quiet mind. The same calm awareness that fungi teach through their slow, deliberate existence. Edible mushrooms remind us of comfort. Toxic mushrooms remind us of respect. And together they reveal the delicate harmony between enjoying what the world offers and honouring the boundaries that keep us safe. Long before modern medicine, long before laboratories and microscopes, people looked to the quiet world of fungi for healing. In ancient forests, shamans gathered bracket fungi from the bark of old trees. In mountain villages, healers dried mushrooms beneath gentle sun. Across Asia, Europe and the Americas, medicinal fungi were treasured as silent allies, patient, humble, and filled with the earth's slow wisdom. Fungi grow where life is soft and where time moves slowly, and perhaps because of that, their healing stories also unfold gently. Reishi, with its lacquered red surface, was called the mushroom of immortality in old Chinese texts. Chaga, dark and rugged like a piece of burnt wood, hides antioxidants within its hardened body, forming slowly on birch trees over many years. Lion's mane, soft and cascading like white threads of snowfall, carries compounds that support memory and focus. Turkey tail, with its layered blues and browns, was brewed as a calming tea long before science knew why. As you breathe slowly now, imagine these medicinal mushrooms resting on a wooden table, their shapes varied, their textures soothing, each one a story from the forest. Distilled into form, carried patiently through generations. What makes fungi so powerful is not magic, but chemistry shaped by time. As they break down wood, leaves, and soil, they create complex molecules to protect themselves from bacteria, viruses, and environmental stress. And in turn, those molecules can support our bodies too, enhancing immunity, calming inflammation, or soothing the nervous system into deeper rest. In many traditions, medicinal mushrooms were not taken for instant cures. They were taken the way one might take a slow walk at dusk or breathe deeply under a quiet sky, as a gentle practice, a steady support, a companion on the long path toward balance. If you close your eyes, imagine drinking a warm cup of mushroom tea on a cool evening. The steam rises in soft spirals. The flavour is earthy, grounding, ancient. You feel not a sudden jolt but a gradual settling, a loosening in the shoulders, a lengthening of the breath, a sense of being held by something older than memory. Modern science has begun to unravel some of these effects. Compounds in reishi promote relaxation. Beta-glucans in chaga and turkey tail support the immune system. Molecules in lion's mane encourage the growth of nerve cells, and cordyceps rising from the high plateaus of Tibet increases oxygen efficiency like a quiet whisper to the lungs. But even with this new understanding, the quiet spirit of medicinal fungi remains unchanged. They do not rush. They do not demand. Their effects, like their lives, are slow and steady, weaving gently through the body the way mycelium weaves through soil. There is a peaceful lesson in this. Healing, like growth, does not always happen quickly. It often begins in small shifts, tiny improvements, subtle changes, moments of calm that accumulate over time. the way fungal networks grow thread by thread, barely noticeable until the transformation is complete. As you settle deeper into rest, imagine that same gentleness moving through you, a slow restoration, a quiet strengthening, not a surge, but a drift, like soft rain nourishing a forest floor after long dryness. Medicinal mushrooms remind us that the body, like the earth, responds best to patience, to consistency, to the slow and steady acts of care that happen quietly in the background. Their wisdom is simple. Healing does not need to be loud to be real. In the quiet corners of nature, fungi have been shaping the chemistry of the world for over 1 billion years. And in a gentle, almost poetic way, they also shape the chemistry within us, not with force, not with intensity, but through subtle molecules that interact with the human brain like soft ripples moving across still water. Some mushrooms influence mood, easing tension the way twilight eases the edge of day. Others help the mind focus, clearing mental fog the way morning light clears mist from the forest floor. A few rare species interact with perception itself, opening inner landscapes that reflect the vastness and complexity of the natural world, and some simply nourish, offering vitamins, minerals, and gentle compounds that help the mind settle into equilibrium. As you breathe slowly now, imagine your brain not as a machine, but as a quiet forest of its own. Neural pathways stretch like roots. Thoughts drift like leaves. Chemical signals travel softly from one region to another, woven together like mycelium connecting distant trees. Inside this forest, balance matters, stillness matters, and fungi, in their ancient wisdom, hold molecules that help restore that balance. Lion's mane is one such ally. Its threads resemble cascading waterfalls of white, and within those threads lie compounds that support nerve growth and cognitive clarity. People who take it often describe a gentle brightness, not a sudden spark, but a soft glow, like lanterns warming up along a distant path. No rush, no intensity, just a gradual sharpening of focus, the mind breathing a little more freely. Reishi, with its deep red lacquered surface, interacts with the nervous system in another way. Its calming effects are slow, settling the body the way moss settles over fallen logs. You don't feel it instantly. It arrives over days or weeks, noticeable only when your breath becomes easier or your thoughts soften at night. Other fungi influence serotonin, dopamine, and the long pathways of communication within the brain, not by overpowering them, but by nudging them gently, like a breeze adjusting the fall of a leaf. These changes can shape mood, memory, and the feeling of being steady within one's own body. Some species hold more complex interactions. Psilocybin mushrooms, approached carefully, reverently, and never casually, are known for affecting perception in profound ways. People describe feelings of connection, unity, or emotional clarity, as if the mind temporarily adopts the expansive, interconnected view of the forest itself. Modern research studies these effects with great respect, exploring how carefully controlled settings can help individuals understand themselves more deeply. But even here, the lesson of fungi remains the same. Their influence is not about rush or force. It is about opening, unfolding, allowing. Their chemistry mirrors their nature, slow, patient, attuned to the natural rhythms of the body. If you close your eyes now, imagine your mind as a calm landscape, with thoughts drifting like spores on a gentle breeze. Some land softly and dissolve, some drift away, some settle into fertile spaces where understanding can grow. Fungi remind us that the mind, like soil, can be renewed, not through pressure, but through quiet, steady processes happening beneath awareness. And through all of this, one truth remains peaceful and clear. The relationship between fungi and the human mind is ancient, subtle, and deeply intertwined. Their molecules speak a language the brain understands, one of balance, restoration, and gentle transformation. As we move forward into the next chapters of this journey, let that interplay rest lightly in your thoughts. The mind is not separate from nature. It mirrors the forest, and sometimes it learns from the smallest, quietest beings of all. When winter settles into the forest, wrapping every branch in silence, the world seems to fall into a deep breath held between seasons. Leaves have crisped into memory. Water stills beneath thin glass sheets of ice. Animal footsteps become rare, slow, careful, and beneath the frozen ground, hidden from frost and wind, fungi rest in a kind of gentle, unhurried sleep. Mushrooms, the fruiting bodies we see, are fleeting things. Most vanish with the cold. Their soft caps wither, their stems collapse. Snow settles where they once stood, but the true organism, the mycelium, remains alive in the soil, waiting with the patience of something that has seen 100,000 winters before this one. As you breathe softly now, imagine that underground world, a vast lacework of hyphae, slowed almost to stillness, not dead, not dormant, just quiet, the way the forest itself becomes quiet under heavy snow. The mycelium curls into safe pockets of earth, conserving energy, protected by layers of fallen leaves, soil, and the insulating hush of winter air. Fungi do not resist the cold. They do not fight it. They surrender gently to it, adapting their metabolism to the season's slowness. Their cells shift chemistry, becoming more tolerant of freezing temperatures. Moisture retreats deeper into the soil where warmth lingers, and the network sleeps, not in darkness, but in a soft, slow glow of preservation. Some species still work quietly through the chill. Certain cold-loving fungi continue breaking down buried wood, releasing faint warmth that creates tiny microclimates beneath logs. Insects sometimes gather there, finding refuge in the heat created by fungal metabolism. A reminder that even in winter, fungi remain caretakers of the small and vulnerable. If you close your eyes, imagine lifting a piece of bark on a cold morning. Steam rises in the frigid air. Beneath it, pale strands of mycelium spread across the wood like frozen lightning. They glow faintly with moisture, alive in their stillness, waiting for the gentle invitation of spring. Winter is not a pause for fungi. It is preparation. A time to conserve, a time to strengthen, a time to gather the quiet energy needed for the great work of renewal when warmth returns. When spring rain softens the forest floor, the mycelium awakens with the slow certainty of a long-held breath finally released. Then, as days grow longer and nights gentler, fruiting bodies begin their upward journey, rising from the soil as if remembering how to unfold. There is a comforting wisdom in this seasonal rhythm, a reminder that rest is not the absence of life. Rest is life preparing for its next chapter. Rest is strength gathering in stillness. Rest is the forest trusting its own timing. As you settle more deeply into your own quiet moment, let the image of winter mycelium soothe your thoughts. A world beneath the world, unhurried and untroubled, simply waiting. Not worrying about when warmth will return, not rushing the thaw, just being, present, patient, quietly alive. In this way, fungi embody one of nature's most peaceful truths, that rest is not a break from the journey. It is part of the journey. It is the deep inhale before growth, the soft pause before transformation, the winter before spring. Let that truth drift gently into your breath, into your night, into the calm space where rest takes root. Like the mycelium beneath the snow, you're allowed to slow down, to gather strength quietly, to wait for your own warm season to return. When we picture mushrooms, we imagine damp forests, cool shadows, and soil softened by rain. But fungi are far more adaptable than their soft forms suggest. They live not only in gentle places, but in the world's harshest landscapes, deserts where the sun scalds the ground, and Arctic tundra where winter stretches for most of the year. In both extremes, fungi survive with the quiet resilience of beings shaped by 1 billion years of patient evolution. In deserts, where water is a rare visitor and heat rises in shimmering waves, certain fungi drift through sand like invisible threads. Their mycelium spreads deep below the surface, far from the scorching air, moving between grains of dust and fragments of ancient rock. They rest for long stretches of time, waiting for the brief blessing of rain. When a cloud finally opens, even for a moment, they awaken, not in haste, but in readiness, as if they had been listening for this exact sound. Some desert fungi partner with hardy shrubs and grasses, helping them absorb every drop of moisture. In return, the plants offer sugars shaped from sunlight. Together they survive the severe rhythms of drought and flood, heat and cold, day and night. Their partnership feels like an ancient pact. I will help you endure this place if you help me breathe within it. As you breathe gently now, imagine that desert night. Cool wind drifting over warm sand, stars spreading across an endless sky. Beneath it all, mycelium lies quiet and steady, conserving energy with a patience that mirrors the desert itself. Far to the north, in the Arctic, fungi face the opposite challenge. Cold, wind, darkness that lasts for months at a time. But here too, they thrive, woven into the frozen soil known as permafrost, partnering with mosses, lichens, and the hardy roots of tundra plants. Arctic fungi grow slowly, taking advantage of brief summers when the sun circles the horizon without setting. During these light-filled months, they help plants absorb nutrients from the thin soil, allowing tundra flowers and dwarf shrubs to bloom in vibrant, delicate bursts. It is a collaboration forged in scarcity, where every gram of nitrogen, every drop of water matters. When winter returns, fungi do not struggle. They simply shift into a slower rhythm. Their cells produce protective compounds like tiny antifreeze crystals. Their metabolism becomes soft and minimal, and beneath snow, beneath ice, beneath darkness, they wait, the same way a quiet breath waits between heartbeats. If you close your eyes, imagine standing in an Arctic night. Silence stretches across the land like a silver blanket. Auroras shimmer above, drifting like curtains of soft light. Under your feet, unseen, fungal networks lie curled within the frozen soil, alive with the potential of the coming spring. What makes fungi extraordinary, in deserts, in tundras, in forests, is not their strength, but their adaptability. Their willingness to shift, to pause, to grow only when the moment is right. They do not demand perfect conditions. They simply merge with whatever world they find themselves in, allowing life to continue in places where life seems impossible. There is a peaceful teaching hidden in their resilience. You do not have to bloom in every season. You do not have to thrive in every climate. Sometimes endurance is enough. Sometimes resting is wise. Sometimes simply staying alive in a harsh moment is a profound act of courage. As you drift deeper into rest, let these quiet survivors soften your thoughts. Life endures in deserts, life endures in ice, and within you, gently, steadily, life endures too. If you look closely at the forest floor, truly closely, you will find that mushrooms are never alone. They rise from soil shared with beetles, ants, tiny flies, patient worms, and countless unseen creatures moving through the undergrowth with quiet purpose. Fungi and insects have lived beside one another for millions of years, their stories intertwined in ways both gentle and strange. Sometimes they form partnerships, sometimes they compete, sometimes their lives overlap in complex dances that shape the rhythm of the forest. As you breathe softly now, imagine kneeling beside a fresh mushroom pushing through moss. Around its stem, small insects wander like curious travelers exploring a new world. Some are drawn by the mushroom's scent, some by the spores drifting like invisible dust. Some simply follow instinct, moving toward nourishment they've never seen before but somehow understand. Many insects depend on mushrooms as food. Beetles burrow into soft caps, carving delicate tunnels that later collapse into gentle folds. Tiny flies lay eggs near gills, where larvae find a tender, nutrient-rich home. Even ants collect spores, carrying them to hidden chambers deep underground, where they help break down plant matter for the colony. To the insects, a mushroom is not merely a fruit of the earth. It is a shelter, a kitchen, a nursery, and a landmark in the landscape of the forest floor. But fungi, in their quiet wisdom, also use insects to continue their own story. As insects feed or wander across a mushroom cap, spores cling to their bodies like grains of soft pollen. When these tiny travellers move on, they carry spores to new places, a log across the clearing, a patch of rich soil, a fallen branch catching the morning light. In this gentle exchange, both the fungus and the insect take part in the forest's cycle of renewal. Yet, not all interactions are peaceful. Some fungi have evolved to control insects in ways that feel almost like myth. Cordyceps, the famous parasitic fungus, sends spores that land on insects and quietly take root. As the fungus grows inside its host, it alters behaviour, guiding the insect to places ideal for fungal growth. Only when the moment is right does the fungus emerge, releasing new spores into the wind. This is not cruelty, but nature's complex balance, a reminder that life and death, growth and decay, often unfold together in slow, intertwined patterns. If you close your eyes, imagine the forest floor at dawn. A beetle crawls beneath a mushroom, brushing against its gills. Spores cling to its shell. Above, a small moth lands on the cap, dusting its wings with powdery spores that shimmer faintly in morning light. A line of tiny springtails gathers around the base, sipping moisture that clings to the stem like dew. Every small movement becomes part of a larger story, a story of dispersal, nourishment, and quiet cooperation. Even in your own garden, this relationship continues. Insects break down organic matter that fungi later recycle. Fungi soften wood that beetle larvae can consume. Together, they create soil rich enough for new plants to grow. In their tiny steps and silent threads, insects and fungi weave the delicate tapestry of the earth. There is a peaceful lesson here, one whispered softly through moss and leaf litter. Life is never solitary. Even the smallest creatures shape one another's worlds. Even the quietest beings influence entire ecosystems through their presence. As you sink deeper into rest, imagine that gentle network of interactions. Tiny legs, soft threads, invisible spores drifting through still air. A whole universe unfolding at the scale of a fingertip, reminding us that harmony often lives in the smallest, most unassuming places. If you could press your ear gently against the earth, not just the surface, but deep into the layers where roots weave and stones rest, you might discover that the soil has a voice, not a human voice, not words or sounds, but a language made of signals, pulses, and slow rhythms travelling through threads of fungi beneath your feet. A voice older than forests, older than rivers, older than almost all life we know. Fungal networks do not speak the way we do, yet they communicate with a quiet elegance. When conditions change, when moisture rises, when nutrients shift, when roots exhale faint chemical breaths, the mycelium responds. It sends subtle electric pulses along its hyphae, like soft flashes of light in a deep cave. Scientists have measured these pulses, comparing them loosely to the patterns of simple nervous systems. Not thinking, not planning, but sensing, responding, flowing. As you breathe softly now, imagine these tiny electrical signals drifting through the soil like whispers. a message sent from root to root, a gentle pulse that says, water is here. Another that says, nutrients found. Another that simply says, I am alive and so are you. These pulses travel slowly, measured not in milliseconds like our own nerves, but in long stretching seconds. It is communication at the pace of rest, a rhythm closer to a heartbeat in sleep than a thought in wakefulness. The soil does not hurry, neither do the fungi that inhabit it. Imagine yourself walking through a forest after rain. Your footsteps press lightly into the ground. Underneath, the mycelium senses faint vibrations, adjusting its growth as gently as a ripple adjusting to a pebble falling into a pond. This is how fungi listen, not with ears, but with presence. They feel the pressure of roots expanding, the sigh of earthworms moving through tunnels, the slow settling of moisture as it sinks into deeper layers of soil. If you close your eyes, you might picture this communication as soft waves of colour spreading beneath the forest floor. When a tree is thirsty, its roots release signals that drift through the soil. The mycelium senses these messages and responds by drawing water from far-off patches of ground, delivering it where it is needed most. When nutrients gather in one area, perhaps from a fallen leaf or a decaying branch, the fungi share them with nearby plants. It is a quiet redistribution, carried out with the same peaceful balance that shapes the growth of moss and the fall of dusk. There is a gentle humility in the voice of the soil. It does not command, it does not demand, it simply reflects the state of the living world, a soft, continuous conversation in which every being participates, whether they know it or not. In our own lives, we often overlook the subtle signals beneath our awareness, the cues our bodies give us, the emotions that rise quietly, the intuition that whispers long before it speaks clearly. But fungi teach us that the subtle signals matter. They guide, they inform, they support the flow of everything else. As you settle deeper into rest, imagine tuning into your own quiet signals, your breath deepening, your muscles softening, your thoughts slowing into gentle currents. Just as the forest listens to the soil, you can listen to your inner landscape, not with effort, but with openness. In the hidden world of fungi, nothing is shouted, everything is whispered, and yet those whispers shape the entire forest. Time moves differently in the fungal world. While seasons turn with the rhythm of wind and sunlight, fungi follow a quieter clock, one measured not in hours or days, but in moisture, decay, darkness, and the soft chemistry of the earth. To understand fungi is to understand a form of time that is ancient, patient, and deeply connected to the pulse of the living world. If you could watch a forest through the eyes of a fungus, you wouldn't see time as a straight line. You would feel it as cycles, the slow settling of fallen leaves, the long fading of a tree's memory into soil, the rise and fall of rains that awaken growth beneath the surface. Each cycle is a gentle turning, a continuation rather than a step forward. Fungi know when to rest. They know when to wait. They know when the world is ready for them to rise. Their sense of timing is not rushed or forced. It is harmonious, shaped by subtle cues drifting through soil like soft echoes. As you breathe slowly now, imagine a mycelial network lying beneath the forest floor. It does not watch the sun or count the days. Instead, it listens to moisture returning after drought, to the cooling air that precedes autumn rains, to the shift in soil density when winter snow begins to melt. These changes are messages, and fungi read them as easily as we read the movement of clouds. Some mushrooms appear exactly when a certain tree releases its annual nutrients. Others wait for the moment when the forest reaches a delicate balance of temperature and light. Chanterelles rise after warm summer rains. Oyster mushrooms flourish when wood softens just enough to offer nourishment. Morels appear in the brief window between winter's retreat and spring's arrival, the season's first breath of warmth. Fungi don't rush to grow just because they can. They wait for the world to whisper, now. If you close your eyes, imagine the forest as a giant clock without hands. Moisture is the hour hand, temperature is the minute hand, decay is the second hand, slow, deliberate, marking time with the soft transformation of what was into what will be. In this world, timekeeping is not rigid. It's fluid, drifting like spores on a breeze. It responds to life instead of controlling it. Fungi rise only when rising is right. They retreat only when retreat is wise, and through their choices they help maintain the balance of the ecosystem around them. Some fungal spores can wait decades before awakening, trapped in old logs, buried in soil, frozen beneath ice. They hold time within them, patient as stars waiting for dawn. And when the conditions finally align, they germinate with a quiet certainty, as though they always knew their moment would come. There is comfort in this way of living, a reminder that timing does not need to be forced, that growth can wait, that beginnings can arrive gently, that our own lives have seasons too, moments of rest, moments of preparation, and moments when everything finally aligns and something new emerges. As you drift deeper into rest, let this idea soften inside you. You do not need to hurry your seasons. Your timing is your own. And like the fungi beneath the forest, you can trust the quiet signals that tell you when to rise, when to pause, when to breathe. In the gentle language of the earth, timing is not a schedule, it is a feeling. Across the world, long before scientific names were given and long before their inner workings were understood, mushrooms held a place in human imagination. They rose quietly after rain, appeared overnight in circles, glowed faintly in moonlight, or emerged in wild shapes that felt too delicate or too strange to be entirely of this world. And so, every culture in its own way folded fungi into its stories, its myths, its rituals, and its understanding of the natural world. In ancient Japan, mushrooms symbolized longevity and good fortune. Families would gather matsutake from deep pine forests, offering them as gifts of respect, seeing within them the spirit of autumn itself. In China, the reishi mushroom, smooth, red, shining like lacquer, was believed to bring peace, vitality, and spiritual clarity. It appeared in paintings, poems, and carved wooden talismans worn by scholars seeking calm. As you breathe softly now, imagine wandering through an old European forest centuries ago. There, people found perfect circles of mushrooms, rings growing in gentle patterns across open meadows. To them, these were fairy rings, places where time moved differently, and where nighttime dances were rumoured to unfold in the presence of unseen beings. A ring of mushrooms became a doorway between worlds, a place where magic touched the mundane. In Siberia, certain mushrooms found their way into spiritual ceremonies, taken not for escape, but for insight, for communion with the natural world, for visions that mirrored the interconnectedness of all life. These traditions were handled with reverence, wrapped in ritual, approached not as casual curiosities but as sacred distances to be crossed with care. In Central and South America, ancient cultures depicted mushrooms in stone carvings and ceremonial artifacts. Some believed they offered access to divine realms, others that they were born from lightning strikes, carrying a spark of the sky within them. Mushrooms became symbols of transformation, rebirth, and the seamless flow between life and spirit. If you close your eyes, imagine a humble kitchen centuries ago, a pot simmering over a low fire, steam rising in quiet spirals. Inside, mushrooms collected from the forest enriched the broth with the taste of earth and rain. For many families, mushrooms were not mysterious. They were comfort. They were nourishment carried from the wild to the hearth, linking the outer world of trees and moss to the warmth of home. Stories grew around them because mushrooms embody so many dualities, fragile yet powerful, fleeting yet ancient, humble yet transformative. They can feed or heal. They can warn or inspire. They can appear like ghosts of the night or like small, colourful lanterns in the morning light. Their forms, so varied and intricate, influence legends too. Coral fungi, branching like tiny underwater worlds, inspired tales of lost realms. Puffballs, releasing clouds of spores when touched, felt like tiny storms captured in soft spheres. The bright red caps of Amanita muscaria, dotted with white, became symbols in European folklore, reminders of both wonder and caution. Through all of human history, mushrooms have asked us to slow down, to observe, to look closely at the quiet corners of nature. Their presence has shaped cuisines, medicines, rituals, stories, and through these, they have shaped our understanding of cycles, of renewal, of the strange beauty hiding in shadows. As you settle deeper into rest, imagine all these cultures, across continents and centuries, connected by the simple act of noticing a mushroom rising from the soil. Different languages, different beliefs, but the same gentle awe. Mushrooms remind us that even the smallest beings can inspire entire mythologies, that what grows quietly can shape the way humans dream, and that nature's softest creations often leave the deepest marks on our collective imagination. If you have ever lifted a mushroom and turned it gently in your hands, you may have noticed the delicate architecture hidden beneath its cap. Thin lines radiating outward in perfect symmetry. Corridors arranged with mathematical precision. A pattern so intricate and rhythmic that it feels less like a structure of nature and more like a quiet piece of art left behind by the forest's own dreaming. These are the gills, the quiet geometry where spores are born. They look simple at first glance, but each gill is a masterpiece of design, shaped by the slow logic of evolution and the soft whisper of purpose. As you breathe softly now, imagine running your eyes along those fragile lines. Each one is thin as a hair, yet holds the weight of millions of spores. Each one is spaced just far enough from the next to allow air to drift through. Together they create a silent cathedral beneath the cap, a space where life gathers, ripens, and releases itself into the world. Gills come in many forms. Some fall straight like the spokes of a wheel. Others split and branch, resembling the delicate rivers of a leaf. Some curve gently, flowing from the centre outward like ripples in water. Each variation follows its own serene logic, balancing space and structure in a way that maximizes the mushroom's quiet mission, to release spores into the air with ease. If you close your eyes, imagine these gills as valleys of soft shadow. Light enters in thin rays when the forest canopy shifts, illuminating the ridges like dawn gliding over a distant mountain range. Within those ridges, spores wait, packed so densely that a single gust of wind can lift them into the world like a cloud of tiny wishes. Some mushrooms have pores instead of gills, tiny holes arranged in honeycomb patterns. Others create teeth-like spines pointing downward, dripping spores from their tips. Coral fungi branch upward like small undersea forests, releasing spores from every surface, but all share the same intention: to spread life with the gentlest possible touch. What makes the geometry of gills so peaceful is the symmetry, the order, the quiet repetition. Nature rarely reveals such precise patterns unless they serve a purpose, and yet they do not feel functional alone. They feel calming, hypnotic, a reminder that life often hides beauty in places we seldom look. As you inhale slowly, imagine the air drifting through a mushroom's gills. Soft currents move between the ridges, carrying spores upward the way breath carries warmth through your body. The exchange is effortless. No tension, no struggle, just a rhythm. Release, drift, fall, grow, echoing the cycles of the forest itself. If you picture a cluster of mushrooms growing together, their gills form a repeating pattern across the forest floor. Parallel lines beneath one cap, parallel lines beneath another, a chorus of quiet geometries, each one shaped by moisture, soil, and time. There is a quiet lesson in these patterns, that life's structure can be simple, yet profound, that complexity can arise from repetition, that beauty can be born from pure function, and that harmony is often found in the smallest spaces, the thin white ridges beneath a cap, hidden from casual view, but essential to the pulse of the forest. As you settle deeper into rest, imagine the geometry softening your thoughts, lines becoming breaths, patterns becoming calm. Symmetry settling into the mind like a slow exhale at the end of a long day. The gills beneath a mushroom remind us that nature builds quietly, elegantly, and with deep intention, and that even in silence, life arranges itself in patterns that reflect the balance we seek within ourselves. Across the world, from shadowed forests to windswept cliffs, fungi endure. They survive in places where cold settles for months, where heat presses into the ground, where storms pull at roots and lightning splits the sky. They persist not through force, but through a quiet resilience, an ability to adapt, to wait, to change shape in harmony with the world around them. Fungi do not resist their environment, they flow with it. As you breathe softly now, imagine a mycelial network spread beneath a fallen tree. The seasons shift above, leaves turn gold, then brown, then melt into soil. Snow melts, rain falls, summer heat gathers in waves. Through all of this, the mycelium adjusts its rhythm. In drought, it tightens. In rain, it expands. In cold, it slows. In warmth, it unfurls like a gentle breath after waking. This adaptability is one of fungi's oldest gifts. They change not only with environment, but with time itself, evolving new abilities in response to the shifting earth. Some species learn to break down lignin, the hardest part of wood. Some adapted to survive fires, rising again from the ashes, nourishing the soil with what remains. Others evolved to partner with trees, forming relationships more enduring than any seen in the animal world. If you close your eyes, imagine a wildfire passing through a forest. Flames roar. Smoke rises like a dark tide. When the fire dies, the land lies quiet, scorched, and still. But beneath the ash, fungi awaken. Their enzymes begin breaking down charred wood, returning nutrients to the soil. New plants will rise because fungi made room for them, quietly, patiently, without ever being seen. In deserts, fungi survive by going dormant for years at a time. In frozen tundras, they slow their metabolism until warmth returns. In tropical jungles, they form intricate alliances to withstand competition in crowded soil. Everywhere, they adapt not with violence, but with flexibility. There is a peaceful strength in such resilience, a reminder that survival does not always look like standing tall. Sometimes it looks like bending, sometimes like resting, sometimes like becoming smaller, quieter, waiting for the world to change before you rise again. Their adaptability also shapes entire ecosystems. When a new plant species enters a forest, fungi adjust their networks, creating new partnerships. When soil becomes nutrient poor, they explore further, bringing minerals from distant patches. When storms wash away leaf litter, they shift their energy to deeper layers, anchoring the forest from below. Even the structure of mycelium, branching, splitting, merging, is a map of resilience. If one pathway is blocked, the fungus simply grows around it. If one branch dries out, another extends in a different direction. There is no frustration, no urgency, only adjustment, like water finding its way around stones in a riverbed. As you settle deeper into rest, imagine this resilience within yourself. Moments when you bent instead of breaking. Moments when you paused instead of pushing. Moments when you changed direction gently, almost instinctively, the way a mycelial thread finds a new path in the dark. Fungi teach us that strength is not stiffness. It is fluidity, the ability to become still when needed, to move when invited, and to grow again, slowly, quietly, beautifully. Let that truth settle into your breath. You're allowed to adapt softly, to grow at your own pace, to change without fear, to find new pathways when the old ones close. In nature, resilience is gentle, and fungi embody that gentleness perfectly, thriving across eons not by force, but by flowing with the world as it changes. If you were to kneel beside a single mushroom, just one, growing quietly beneath a fern or beside an old log, you might think it stands alone, but look closer, soften your gaze, imagine shrinking your awareness into the tiny world at its base, and a whole ecosystem begins to appear, a miniature landscape, alive with movement, colour and quiet interactions, all revolving around this small, humble being. A mushroom is not simply a cap and a stem. It is a gathering place, a shelter, a source of moisture, a temporary home in the grand architecture of the forest. Life gravitates toward it the way starlings gather on a warm wire, without hurry, without invitation, simply because it offers what the world around it needs. As you breathe slowly now, imagine lowering your eyes to the forest floor. The mushroom rises only a few centimetres, yet beneath it, entire dramas of softness unfold. A droplet of dew clings to the gills, magnifying the morning light into a tiny universe. A millipede curls into the shadow beneath the cap, finding refuge from the sun. A tiny beetle climbs the stem, leaving footprints so small they vanish almost instantly. Every part of the mushroom plays a role. Its cap shields delicate soil beneath from drying out, creating a cool pocket where moss and seedlings can survive. Its stem elevates the gills or pores just enough to release spores into the passing breeze. Its surface becomes a resting place for insects, moist enough to drink from, warm enough to rest upon during the chill of dawn. If you look even closer, past what the naked eye can see, a second ecosystem appears. Bacteria gather near the base, feeding on nutrients the fungus releases. Microscopic nematodes drift through droplets like tiny swimmers. Spores cling to their bodies like grains of stardust, hitching gentle rides to unknown destinations. Every movement, however small, becomes part of the forest's vast and intricate choreography. And beneath the mushroom, the mycelium hums, its threads spread like the roots of a dream, connecting everything in this miniature world. The soil rich with decomposed leaves, the small creatures seeking warmth, the plants whose roots share nutrients with the fungus. In this tiny circle of earth, relationships overlap softly, a web of life no wider than your palm, yet as elegant and interconnected as a galaxy. If you close your eyes, picture this scene in perfect stillness. Soft moss like green velvet, pine needles lying in gentle spirals, particles of soil glowing with the faint humidity of dawn, and in the centre, the mushroom, quiet, steady, offering shelter without effort. Even the air forms part of this ecosystem. Spores drift upward in invisible clouds, shimmering like invisible snowfall. Scent molecules rise, earthy, sweet, grounding, attracting insects that cannot resist the promise of nourishment. A breath of wind passes, carrying spores across a mere few inches, yet in the scale of their world, it is a journey worthy of maps and stars. These miniature ecosystems remind us that complexity does not require size, that whole worlds can exist within the space between fallen leaves, that life unfolds gently, beautifully, even where we rarely think to look. As you settle deeper into rest, let this smallness bring you comfort. You do not need to hold the whole world at once. You can be like the mushroom, a quiet centre in a small circle of life, influencing others simply by existing, simply by being present. In every ecosystem, No matter how tiny, there is harmony. And inside yourself, in the smallest corners of your own inner world, harmony can exist too. Soft, peaceful, complete. There is a fragrance in the forest that feels older than memory. A soft, earthy scent that rises after rain, drifts beneath ferns and lingers in the pockets of cool morning air. It is the smell of life returning to itself. And quietly, almost invisibly, fungi are the artists of this aroma. Most people don't realize it, but the distinct scent of the forest floor, that deep, comforting, grounding smell, is shaped largely by fungi. As they break down leaves, wood, and the remains of seasons past, they release compounds that rise from the soil like a gentle exhale. One of these compounds, called geosmin, is responsible for that warm, earthy smell after rain, the scent that makes you feel as though the world has just been washed clean. As you breathe softly now, imagine inhaling that fragrance, a smell that feels both new and ancient, a smell that settles the mind the way dusk settles over a quiet lake. It is the scent of renewal, of quiet work done in darkness, of the invisible transformations happening beneath your feet. Fungi help create this scent not through haste, but through patience. They take their time softening fallen leaves, turning wood into soil grain by grain, releasing aromatic molecules in tiny waves. These molecules drift upward, caught by the cool humidity beneath trees, lingering just long enough for a passing walker, or animal, or breeze to carry them forward. If you close your eyes, imagine kneeling down and running your hand over the forest floor. The soil is dark and rich. The scent rises instantly, warm and reassuring. This fragrance is a signal, not of decay, but of life beginning again. For every leaf that falls, every branch that rests, fungi ensure it becomes nourishment for the next generation of growth. The scent of the forest floor is a kind of memory. It carries the rain from last night, the warmth of last summer, the cool shadows of years long gone. It holds the quiet conversations between roots and mycelium, the breath of moss, the softness of old bark. When you breathe it in, you're breathing the collective work of millions of tiny organisms, each contributing a thread to the tapestry of renewal. Animals rely on this scent too. Deer follow it to find lush grazing grounds. Insects read its subtleties to locate food or shelter. Even birds recognize the aroma that signals healthy soil, a good place for nesting and foraging. The forest floor's fragrance is a quiet sign that the ecosystem is thriving, and it has an effect on us as well. Studies show that earthy scents can calm the nervous system, slow the heart rate, and bring a sense of grounded presence. Perhaps this is because the smell reminds us of stability, of roots, of cycles that continue whether we are aware of them or not. Or perhaps it is because fungi, in their slow transformation of matter, radiate a peaceful rhythm we instinctively recognize. As you settle deeper into rest, imagine yourself lying beneath tall trees after a gentle rain. The ground beneath you is soft. The air around you is rich with that deep, earthy scent. It fills your lungs with ease, like a quiet reassurance that the world is stable, that renewal is constant, that rest is part of the cycle of life. The scent of the forest floor is not simply a smell, it is a message from the earth, a reminder that beneath everything you see, quiet forces are always at work, holding the world together through patience, softness, and steady transformation. There is something about mushrooms that stirs imagination. Perhaps it is their shapes, round, delicate, whimsical, sometimes strange. Perhaps it is their sudden appearance after rain, rising overnight as if summoned from dreams. Or perhaps it is the quiet mystery they carry, hinting at the hidden networks and ancient stories woven beneath the soil. Whatever the reason, mushrooms have long inspired creativity in those who pause long enough to notice them. Artists sketch their curves and patterns, finding in their forms the same balance seen in seashells and galaxies. Writers weave them into stories, letting them mark thresholds between worlds, symbols of transformation and the strange beauty of nature. Chefs turn them into culinary poetry, sautéing, roasting, fermenting, unlocking flavours shaped by soil, wood and rain. As you breathe softly now, imagine sitting at a wooden desk near a window overlooking a quiet forest. A mushroom rests beside your hand, a small, humble specimen, freshly gathered from the moss. Its surface is smooth, its scent is earthy. Its gills form delicate ridges like lines of a poem waiting to be read. You can feel, even without trying, how a creation like this might inspire someone, not through grandeur but through gentle detail. Many traditional crafts draw from mushrooms too. In parts of Europe, bracket fungi were once used to start fires, their fibres catching sparks with a tenderness that kept travellers warm through cold nights. Certain mushrooms were carved into small charms, or painted as motifs of luck and protection. And in some cultures, dyes made from fungi-tinted fabrics with subtle shades of gold, rust and moss green, colours that felt like the forest itself woven into cloth. If you close your eyes, imagine a painter's palette made from nature, the deep browns of porcini, the soft yellows of chanterelles, the pale blues found on delicate caps touched by morning dew. All colours that exist quietly, waiting for someone to lift them into art. Even modern creativity finds its muse in fungi. Mushroom mycelium is now used to craft sustainable materials, bricks, furniture, packaging, bringing innovation shaped not by machines, but by the slow engineering of nature. Designers study the fractal geometry of gills for patterns in architecture. Musicians record the gentle electrical pulses of mycelium, translating them into ambient soundscapes that echo the forest's hidden rhythms. And in the realm of imagination, mushrooms have always held a place close to wonder. From fairy tales to fantasy worlds, from mythic forests to futuristic landscapes, fungi appear again and again, symbols of mystery, curiosity, change. They bridge the known and the unknown, the real and the dreamlike. There is a reason creativity blooms around mushrooms. They remind us to look closely, to see beauty in smallness, to find inspiration in quiet corners, to appreciate forms shaped by patience, not perfection. As you settle deeper into rest, imagine a soft light falling on a cluster of mushrooms in the forest. Their caps glisten with dew, their colours blend into a quiet harmony. Their presence feels like a whisper saying, "Slow down, notice, imagine." And in that noticing, creativity awakens, gently, like a spore drifting into open air. Fungi teach us that inspiration doesn't always roar in with brilliance. Sometimes it arrives softly, like a mushroom rising through moss, like a pattern beneath a cap, like the forest's quiet gift of beauty waiting just beneath your gaze. There is a word, whispered through philosophies and ancient teachings, that describes the way everything in nature is woven together, into being. It suggests that nothing exists alone, that every leaf, every raindrop, every breath, every quiet organism beneath the soil is part of something larger. In the forest, fungi embody this truth more clearly than almost any other life form. They live not as individuals, but as connections, threads of relationship spreading through the earth like gentle truths, carrying themselves from one root to another. As you breathe softly now, imagine standing in a forest glade at dusk. Light falls through branches in pale ribbons. Shadows deepen, merging with the soft hum of evening. You look around, seeing trees rooted separately, each rising from its own place. But beneath your feet, a network holds them together, unseen, yet profoundly real. Fungi weave them into one living community, a single breath rising through many trunks. This is interbeing, where one tree's strength supports another's weakness, where one fallen leaf becomes nourishment for countless lives, where the actions of the smallest organism ripple gently across the entire ecosystem. Fungi remind us that separation is an illusion created by what we can see. Connection is the deeper truth, the quiet, enduring foundation beneath all things. Mycelium threads do not ask which tree is theirs. They do not choose one species over another. They carry water to whoever needs it. They share minerals where the soil has grown thin. They link saplings and elders, evergreens and deciduous giants, mushrooms and mosses, insects and roots. In their world, life is not a competition. It is a conversation, an ongoing exchange of presence and support. If you close your eyes, imagine these threads glowing softly beneath the soil, each one a pathway of care, each one a bridge between lives, each one proving silently that nothing grows alone. Interbeing also shapes the way fungi live their own lives. A single mushroom carries the work of millions of hyphae. Spores drifting into distant wind will only thrive if they land in soil softened by the work of countless organisms before them. The mycelium's growth depends on the decomposers, the insects, the rain, the trees, the seasons. Every stage of fungal life is intertwined with the world around it. There is a gentle humility in this, a reminder that independence is not the same as isolation, that true resilience comes from relationship, that our strength grows when we let ourselves be part of something larger. Humans, too, move through unseen networks. We influence one another through gestures, silence, kindness, presence, a single calm moment, a single gentle word, a single offering of support can drift into someone else's life like a spore carried on a breeze, settling softly, taking root in ways we may never see. Fungi show us how connected we already are, through shared experiences, shared breath, shared earth. The air you breathed tonight was shaped by forests. The food you eat was nourished by soil enriched by fungi. Even the calm settling through your body now reflects the slow, ancient rhythms of nature moving through you. As you drift deeper into rest, let this idea settle gently into your thoughts. You're part of a network, even when you feel alone. You're supported by countless beings you will never meet, soil microbes, trees releasing oxygen, fungi transforming the world beneath your feet. Interbeing means that your existence touches others in ways you do not always notice. It means you are never separate, never disconnected, never without quiet threads linking you to life around you. The forest knows this. The fungi know this. And somewhere deep inside, you know it too. If you stand in a forest at dawn, before the light fully stretches across the treetops, you may feel something subtle in the air, a slow rhythmic pulse, as if the entire woodland is breathing, not with lungs, not with a chest rising and falling, but with an ancient collective exhale shaped by roots, leaves, soil, and fungi. Together they form the quiet respiration of the living world. Trees release oxygen into the morning air. Soil organisms release carbon dioxide. Moisture rises in faint threads, carrying the scent of moss and bark, and fungi, hidden beneath your feet, regulate this exchange, guiding the forest's breath with their own slow chemistry. As you breathe gently now, imagine the forest around you expanding on the inhale. Light deepens, mist lifts. The canopy brightens as fresh oxygen fills the space between branches. Then, imagine the forest exhaling, a soft release, drifting down through leaves, settling into the understory where shadows gather and mushrooms rise from damp soil. Fungi shape this breath in ways we rarely see. Their hyphae bind soil particles together, allowing air to flow more smoothly through the ground. They break down organic matter, releasing gases that feed the forest's respiratory rhythm. They exchange nutrients with roots, enabling trees to breathe more deeply and steadily. In every inhale and exhale of the forest, Fungi hold a quiet, essential place. If you close your eyes, picture the underground world as a slow-moving tide. Mycelium threads draw oxygen inward, using it to break down fallen wood. They release carbon dioxide outward, offering it to the roots of plants as nourishment. What seems like decay is actually transformation, a continuous recycling of air, matter and energy. Above ground, the forest breathes in harmony with this hidden network. Leaves flutter in response to tiny shifts in humidity. Sunlight warms the undergrowth, encouraging mushrooms to release their spores. Each part of the ecosystem adjusts to the subtle signals drifting through soil and air, signals shaped by fungi working patiently in the dark. There is something deeply peaceful about this rhythm. It holds a reminder that breathing, whether for a forest or a person, is not just survival, it is communication. A dialogue between the inner world and the outer one, a steady exchange that keeps everything aligned and alive. In your own life, breath reflects your inner state. Fast during moments of tension, soft and deep during calm. Just as the forest's breath shifts with weather, seasons and time, yours shifts with emotion, memory and thought. Fungi teach us to honour this rhythm. Their breath is slow, measured, unhurried. Their exchanges happen at a pace nature has perfected over millions of years. They remind us that breath does not need to be controlled or forced. It simply flows when we allow ourselves to be present. As you settle deeper into rest, imagine your inhale gathering the softness of the forest, the scent of wet soil, the quiet coolness beneath ferns, the faint glow of morning light. Imagine your exhale releasing any tension you hold, the way a tree releases old air into the hands of fungi waiting beneath it. In this moment, your breath becomes part of the forest's breath, slow, steady, connected. The forest does not breathe alone, neither do you. Intelligence is often imagined as something fast, quick decisions, quick thoughts, quick sparks firing through a busy mind. But fungi invite us to consider another form of intelligence, one that moves quietly, slowly, with a patience that borders on wisdom. It is the intelligence of simplicity, a way of responding to the world through presence, sensitivity, and effortless adaptation. Fungi do not think in the human sense. They have no brains, no nerves, no eyes to see or ears to hear, and yet they navigate the forest with an uncanny grace. Hyphae turn toward nutrients before the nutrients are even fully present. Mycelial networks adjust their growth depending on the needs of nearby plants. Spores drift to places where moisture gathers, as if guided by intuition deeper than sight. As you breathe softly now, imagine this intelligence not as a burst of thought, but as a soft awareness. The way water knows how to fill the lowest places, the way vines find their way toward light, the way your own breath knows how to deepen when quiet settles around you. Fungi sense the world through tiny chemical shifts, a drop in pH, a hint of sugar dissolved in soil, a subtle change in moisture carried by air. These small signals guide vast networks, telling them where to grow, when to rest, where to send nutrients, and when to bloom into mushrooms after rain. It is an intelligence that listens more than it speaks. If you close your eyes, imagine the forest at night. Moonlight drips softly through branches. Beneath the surface, fungal threads move with intention, not hurried, not hesitant, simply aligned with what the world offers. They do not force the soil to open. They follow its paths. They travel where they are welcomed. This kind of simplicity is not lack. It is mastery. The mastery of knowing only what is needed, the mastery of responding without resisting, the mastery of adjusting without fear. Humans often complicate their own journeys, thinking ahead, thinking behind, thinking sideways. But fungi move only in the present moment. They grow in the direction of a nourishment. They pause in dryness. They bloom in moisture. They dissolve obstacles not through confrontation, but through gentle persistence. There is a quiet teaching in their way of being, that life does not always require strategy or speed. Sometimes it requires only awareness, the ability to notice the small shifts around us and let them guide our next soft step. In your own life, this intelligence may appear as intuition, as the small, calm feeling that tells you when to pause, when to rest, when to move, when a path no longer serves you, when another quietly opens. Just like mycelium, your inner landscape senses more than your thoughts can articulate. As you settle deeper into rest, imagine adopting the intelligence of fungi, moving gently toward what nourishes you, letting go of what no longer feeds your growth, allowing yourself to change direction softly when needed. In the forest, nothing about fungi is loud, and yet their quiet decisions shape entire ecosystems. Their simple responses sustain countless lives. Their subtle intelligence holds the balance of the world beneath our feet. In simplicity, they find their power. And in simplicity, you may find your peace. Time, as humans feel it, often rushes. Minutes tumble into hours, days into weeks, seasons into memories. But in the world of fungi, time is not a river that flows quickly. It is a gentle lake, still and deep, where change happens quietly beneath the surface. The mushroom kingdom lives in slow motion, unfolding at a pace that invites us to soften our own sense of urgency. Fungi measure time in moisture, in temperature, in the slow choreography of decay. They do not hurry toward growth. A mushroom may appear overnight, but the network beneath it has been preparing for weeks, or months, or even years. Mycelium spreads grain by grain, sensing the world, adjusting to seasons, waiting for the quiet alignment of conditions before rising into the visible world. As you breathe softly now, imagine this slower timeline taking shape inside your mind. Imagine your thoughts moving not with speed, but with the ease of mist drifting through a forest valley. In the mushroom kingdom, there is no pressure to bloom before the time is right. There is only patience, presence, and the gentle trust that everything unfolds when it needs to. Mushrooms themselves embody this timing beautifully. Morels appear in the brief window after winter recedes but before spring fully arrives. Their timing is so precise that entire cultures wait for that single stretch of days each year. The moment when soil warms just enough, when snowmelt seeps into the ground, when the forest exhales after its long sleep. Other mushrooms rise in autumn, after the first cool rains. Chanterelles follow long stretches of humidity. Porcini prefer the rhythm of warm days and cool nights. Each species listens to the forest calendar, a calendar written not in dates, but in sensations. The thickness of moisture in the air, the softness of soil, the length of shadows cast by the early dusk. If you close your eyes, imagine yourself walking through a forest along its annual cycle. Spring brings tender shoots and hidden morels. Summer brings bursts of life and occasional surprises after storms. Autumn brings colour, in leaves, in caps, in the quiet glow of mushrooms rising from leaf litter. Winter brings stillness, the mycelium resting beneath frozen soil. It is a rhythm without rush, without anxiety, without the relentless push of modern timekeeping. Fungi also mark deeper timelines, geological ones. Their ancestors broke down rock into the first soil on Earth. Their descendants survive in caves where light has never touched. Some species remain unchanged for millions of years, revealing a patience beyond imagination. When we observe fungi, we glimpse a world where time is not a taskmaster, but a companion. Growth happens only when invited. Decay happens only when ready. Rest is not an interruption. It is part of the story. And in that slow unfolding lies a gentle truth. Your own life does not need to move quickly to be meaningful. Slowness can be sacred. Pauses can be powerful. Healing, growth, understanding. All of these follow timelines we cannot rush. As you settle deeper into rest, imagine aligning your breath with the slow time of the forest. Let each inhale be a season. Let each exhale be a soft release of what no longer needs to be carried. Allow yourself to feel the spaciousness that fungi embody so naturally, the sense that everything blooms in its own time, that you are allowed to move slowly, that rest is not lost time, but lived time. In the mushroom kingdom, patience is not waiting, it is simply being. In the quiet world of fungi, growth and decay are not opposites. They are partners, two halves of the same gentle rhythm that sustains the forest. Where one ends, the other begins. Where something falls, something else rises. This cycle is not harsh or sudden, it is soft, continuous, woven through time like the threads of mycelium beneath the soil. To fungi, decay is simply transformation. What appears broken becomes food. What once stood tall becomes nourishment. A fallen tree becomes a cradle for saplings. A withered leaf becomes part of the earth's breath. Nothing is wasted. Everything is carried forward. As you breathe softly now, imagine the forest at dusk. A log rests on the ground, its bark weathered, its wood softened by rain and time. From its surface, tiny mushrooms rise, delicate, brief, luminous. Within the log, mycelium hums quietly, dissolving what was once solid, turning it into rich soil. Above the log, a young tree stretches upward, its roots drinking the nutrients fungi have unlocked. One life fades, another grows. Both belong to the same gentle cycle. Fungal growth is humble. It begins invisibly, with thin hyphae weaving through darkness like threads of moonlight searching for a place to belong. These threads join others, forming networks that spread not with urgency, but with purpose, sensing, responding, adjusting. When the world is dry, they pause. When moisture returns, they open like small hands reaching into soft soil. Decay too is gentle. Fungi do not tear down. They soften, they loosen, they return structure to simplicity. The hard becomes tender, the rigid becomes receptive. In their patient work, old forms dissolve into nourishment for new ones. If you close your eyes, imagine this slow cycle unfolding like breath. Growth like the inhale, expanding, rising, reaching, decay like the exhale, releasing, returning, letting go. The forest breathes through this rhythm, and, in a quiet way, so do you. Within your own life, cycles of growth and release echo this natural pattern. Moments of clarity arise like fresh mushrooms after rain. Sudden, unexpected, luminous. Moments of letting go arrive slowly, gently dissolving what no longer serves. These cycles are not failures or losses, they're transformations. They make space for new roots, new ideas, new chapters. Fungi teach us that holding on is not always strength. Sometimes letting go is the true nourishment. The moment decay becomes the soil for something new. The forest trusts this process completely. A fallen leaf does not mourn its descent. A log does not resist its softening. Everything flows into what comes next. Even the mushrooms themselves embody this rhythm. They rise quickly, shine briefly, and return to the earth without resistance. Their lives are short, but their impact lasts for generations, enriching soil, nourishing roots, shaping the future of the forest long after they fade. As you settle deeper into rest, imagine allowing parts of your mind to soften the way fungi soften wood. Old worries dissolving grain by grain, old tensions loosening, old stories gently releasing their grip, not through force, but through quiet acceptance. In the cycle of growth and decay, nothing is lost. Everything becomes part of something larger, something continuous, something deeply peaceful. Let yourself enter that rhythm now. Inhale, growth, exhale, release. Inhale, possibility. Exhale, rest. What fades will nourish what comes next, and what grows will someday return, completing the gentle circle that holds the forest and all of us in balance. There is a kind of silence in the forest that you can only feel when you pause long enough to listen beneath sound. A silence rooted not in the absence of life, but in the presence of secret worlds moving quietly beneath your feet. This silence belongs to the mycelial networks, vast intricate systems of living threads that carry the forest's deepest messages without ever breaking the stillness of the air. These networks do not rustle like leaves, they do not sway like branches, they do not call out like birds or hum like insects. They exist in a deeper frequency, one beyond hearing, beyond sight, beyond hurried awareness. Their silence is not emptiness, it is fullness contained, purpose without noise, movement without disturbance. As you breathe softly now, imagine the earth beneath you as a vast tapestry. Each mycelial strand is a thread. Each thread merges with countless others, forming pathways that extend farther than any root system, farther than most rivers, farther than your imagination might guess. They weave through soil, through decaying leaves, through stones softened by rain. Everywhere they go, they build connection. If you were to shrink yourself down to the scale of a grain of soil, the underground world would look like a quiet constellation. Strands of mycelium glowing faintly, like starlight drifting through darkness. Branches splitting, joining and curving with the softness of flowing water. Nodes pulsing gently when nutrients gather. Here and there, tiny threads diving into a root, offering minerals in exchange for sugars. Every movement is subtle, slow, deliberate, a silent conversation between life forms that never raise their voices. This hidden silence shapes everything above. Trees grow taller because of it. Plants endure drought because of it. Seeds take root in soil softened by fungal care. Animals wander forests that fungi have been preparing for centuries. Rainwater filters through layers arranged and held by fungal threads. The silence beneath the forest floor is not passive. It is the quiet labour that allows the visible world to bloom. If you close your eyes, imagine the stillness of this underground life drifting upward into your breath. Its rhythm is slow, slower than heartbeat, slower than thought. It reminds you that not all work needs to be urgent. Not all progress needs to be seen. Some of the most meaningful growth happens in silence, when no one is watching, when the world feels still. The mycelium teaches us something essential, that support does not need to announce itself. Trees never see the networks that sustain them, yet they thrive because of them. Likewise, in your own life, quiet forms of support, rest, reflection, intuition, the kindness of others, may guide you more deeply than you realize. Silence is not a void. It is a space where things take shape, a space where the unseen becomes essential. In the forest, when a tree is stressed, the fungal network responds. No sound is made, no signal is heard, and yet nutrients flow toward the roots that need them most. The forest breathes easier because of silent generosity. As you settle deeper into rest, allow that silence to surround your thoughts. Let it loosen what feels tight. Let it soften what feels overburdened. Let it remind you that quiet moments are not empty. They are where your inner network regenerates, where clarity grows, where strength gathers invisibly. Fungi work without recognition. They move without applause. They give without insisting. Their silence is a sanctuary, a reminder that peace is most powerful when it is gentle. Let that silence hold you now, softly, steadily, deeply. Deep beneath the forest floor, where sunlight never reaches and roots move in patient arcs, a quiet dialogue unfolds. It is a conversation without words, without sound, without language as we know it, yet it carries meaning, intention, and response. This is the mystery of fungal communication, subtle signals drifting through threads of mycelium, connecting life in a web of soft intelligence. Fungi do not speak, but they sense. They do not write, but they record. They do not plan, but they respond with elegance to the world around them. Every shift in moisture, every chemical released by a tree's root, every tremble in the soil sends messages into the network. Messages that fungi receive and answer with quiet precision. As you breathe softly now, imagine these messages as pulses of light travelling through an underground constellation. A root exudes sugars, signalling health. The mycelium brightens, carrying minerals toward it. A nearby sapling releases faint chemical distress during drought. The fungal network shifts, redirecting water from deeper soil. A log begins to decay, softening with moisture. Fungi awaken gently, beginning the slow process of breaking it down into nourishment for the forest. This is communication not of words, but of presence. Scientists have measured electrical pulses travelling through fungal networks, not as fast as neurons, but steady, patterned, meaningful. Some pulses cluster like syllables, others repeat like rhythm. It is not speech, but it is something akin to it, a language shaped by life's quiet needs. If you close your eyes, imagine touching the soil with your fingertips. Beneath your hand, countless signals drift through the mycelium. Some travel long distances, some pass only a few centimetres, some carry nutrients, some carry warnings. All of them weave the forest into one connected being. A fallen branch becomes a message. There is nourishment here. A shift in temperature becomes another. The season is changing. A fungus colonizing a leaf sends a final whisper. It is time to return this to the earth. Even mushrooms, the brief delicate fruiting bodies, must carry part of this dialogue. When their caps open, they release spores into the air, scattering new potential across the forest. This too is communication, a message of continuation, of renewal, of the ongoing cycle of life. Fungi even help trees talk to one another. A mother tree can send carbon through the network to her seedlings in the shadows. Two trees of different species can share nutrients through the fungal threads between them. When pests attack one tree, chemical signals drift through the soil, warning nearby trees to prepare their defences. It is a quiet community tending itself in silence. There is something profoundly peaceful in this hidden conversation. It reminds us that communication does not always require voice, that connection does not always require visibility, that support can flow quietly, without recognition or applause. In your own life, there are similar forms of silent communication. The comfort of a shared glance, the warmth of someone's presence, the calm that enters a room when a loved one arrives, the reassurance found in stillness. As you drift deeper into rest, imagine tuning into the subtle signals of your own inner world, breath telling you to slow, muscles telling you to soften, thoughts telling you to release. Just like the forest, your body holds its own language, gentle, steady, always guiding you toward balance. The mystery of fungal communication remains partly unsolved, but its message is clear. Life is connected in ways we cannot fully see, and silence often holds the deepest truths. If the earth could remember everything, every fallen tree, every shifting season, every rainfall soaked into soil, every footprint pressed into moss, its memories would live in the fungi beneath our feet. Fungi are archivists of the natural world, holding stories not in books or symbols, but in chemical traces, nutrient flows, and the quiet transformation of matter across time. When a leaf falls, fungi record its presence. They soften it, break it down, fold it into soil. The memory of that leaf becomes nourishment for roots decades later. When a tree dies, fungi preserve its story in rings of softened wood, absorbing minerals that once flowed through its veins, Even ancient forests long gone leave remnants in soil shaped by the fungi that once flourished there. As you breathe softly now, imagine kneeling in a clearing and pressing your hand against the earth. Beneath your palm lie millions of years of stories. Storms that split old trunks, animals who wandered through darkness, plants that rose and faded, seasons layered like quiet pages in a book woven from soil. Fungi hold these stories because they are always listening, always sensing, always guiding transformation from old to new. Mycelium does not simply break things down, it creates continuity. The nutrients in a mushroom today may have journeyed through countless lives. Trees, insects, mosses, animals, each one contributing a fragment of memory. In this way, fungi connect the past to the present, ensuring nothing is truly lost, only changed. If you close your eyes, imagine time not as a line, but as a circle, a spiral, a gentle unfolding. Imagine each rotation leaving traces in the soil, a drought etched into the chemistry of underground threads, a season of abundance remembered in the thickness of humus, a wildfire recorded in charred fibres softened by fungal care. The earth remembers through these subtle marks, and fungi are its storytellers. Some fungi themselves are ancient beings, living for thousands of years. Their threads spread slowly, preserving the history of landscapes long before humans arrived. They have lived through continental shifts, glacial ages, extinctions, rebirths, and through it all, their presence has shaped the soil that shaped the forest that shaped the world we know. Even in modern ecosystems, fungi preserve memory. A tree leaning towards sunlight remembers which direction nourished it, because its mycorrhizal network adjusts accordingly. Seeds sprouting after a century of dormancy germinate in soil prepared by centuries of fungal activity. Old nutrients stored deep in the earth rise again in new roots, because fungi have kept them safe. This idea, that nothing is lost, only transformed, offers a quiet comfort. Your experiences too leave traces within you. Some soften with time, some enrich the foundation of your inner world. Some crumble into wisdom that feeds your next chapter. Like the forest floor, you hold layers shaped by seasons, emotions, and long-forgotten moments. As you settle deeper into rest, imagine your memories gently reorganizing themselves, not discarded, not overwhelming, but becoming soft soil where new understanding may grow. What was heavy becomes lighter. What was confusing becomes part of a wider pattern. Fungi teach us that transformation is not erasure, it is integration. You do not need to cling to the past for it to matter. You do not need to fear change for your story to endure. Just as the forest carries its memories quietly beneath its surface, you can carry yours with gentleness, letting them nourish rather than burden. In the hidden world of fungi, the earth remembers itself, and in your quiet moments, you can remember your own life with the same softness, shaped but not defined, guided but not constrained, held lightly, like nutrient-rich soil awaiting new beginnings. There comes a moment in any long journey, whether through a forest, through learning, or through the quiet space of the mind, when you begin to return. Not because the path is ending, but because the circle is closing, drawing you gently back to center. In the world of fungi, every cycle eventually turns inward, toward the deep networks beneath the surface, and in your own inner landscape there is a forest waiting, soft, calm, spacious, ready to welcome you home. As you breathe softly now, imagine walking through a woodland at twilight. Light fades between branches, turning gold into blue. Moss glows faintly with the day's lingering warmth. The air carries the scent of damp soil, the quiet breath of mushrooms hidden in their beds of leaves, the subtle perfume of a world at rest. This is not a place outside you, it is a place within you, a sanctuary shaped by memory, imagination, and the deep rhythms of nature you've carried since childhood. Every mushroom you've explored in this journey, those rising after rain, those hiding in winter sleep, those partnering with trees or glowing beneath fallen logs, reflect something within the inner forest of your mind. Their patience, their cycles, their quiet wisdom become mirrors of your own hidden resilience. If you close your eyes, imagine finding a small clearing within this inner forest. The ground is soft beneath your feet. A ring of mushrooms forms a gentle boundary, not a barrier, but a circle of welcome. Within it, the air feels still, safe, comforting. This is the center of your journey, the place where everything you've learned from fungi, connection, patience, transformation, silence, gathers into a single quiet awareness. The mycelial networks you followed through earlier chapters exist here too, beneath your inner landscape. They remind you that your growth does not happen all at once. It happens in threads, in tiny moments, in the soft adjustments you make without even noticing. One new thought, one gentle release, one breath that carries away an old tension. Each moment a strand of mycelium weaving beneath your awareness. In this inner forest, you may sense memories softened into soil, old worries broken down like fallen leaves, dreams sprouting quietly like saplings reaching toward new light. Nothing here is rushed. Nothing is wasted. Everything is becoming something else. You may even sense subtle communication within this space, the way fungi send messages through their networks, the way your own body and mind send signals of comfort or unease, readiness or rest. This is your inner language. It whispers, slow down, breathe, you are safe here. As you wander through the clearing, notice the mushrooms around you. Their caps glisten softly in the fading light. Their stems rise with a quiet confidence. Their presence feels like an invitation to be still, to let yourself settle into the same gentle rhythm that shapes their world. What makes this forest so peaceful is not its silence, but its acceptance. Here, there is room for everything. Room for your thoughts to drift like spores. Room for your breath to settle into a slow, steady tide. Room for you to let go, to soften, to rest. As you settle deeper into this inner space, imagine sitting beneath a tall tree whose roots connect to everything around you. The forest breathes, the soil hums, the mycelium glows beneath the surface like a quiet constellation. And you, simply by being here, become part of that gentle network. In this moment, you're not separate from nature. You're its reflection, its rhythm, its breath. Let this inner forest cradle you. Let it remind you of the wisdom you carry without effort. Patience, connection, renewal. And when you are ready, let your awareness drift forward toward the final part of this journey, where everything you've explored comes together in a soft closing arc. Every journey, no matter how wondrous or expansive, eventually brings you back to where you began, but never as the same person. You return carrying new understandings, gentle insights, and quiet transformations that settle into you the way mist settles into a forest at dawn. Tonight, after drifting through the hidden world of mushrooms, after tracing the threads of mycelium and hearing the soft stories of the soil, you come home with a new sense of calm, a deeper awareness of how life moves, changes, and renews itself in silence. As you breathe softly now, imagine stepping slowly out of that inner forest you visited. The path beneath your feet glows faintly, lit by the last shimmer of bioluminescent fungi winding along the roots. Behind you, the mushroom rings, the mossy logs, the patient networks beneath the soil continue their ancient cycles, unhurried, unbroken, deeply alive. Ahead of you lies open space, a clearing touched by moonlight, where the boundary between the forest and the rest of your life gently dissolves. You carry the teachings of fungi within you now, the patience of mycelial networks, the resilience of desert species, the stillness of those resting beneath winter snow, the quiet generosity of fungi feeding forests and linking roots. You carry the reminder that transformation does not need to be loud, that growth can happen slowly, invisibly, beautifully, long before it ever becomes visible. If you close your eyes, feel the soft echo of everything you've travelled through, the scent of the forest floor rising like memory, the geometry of gills unfolding like delicate architecture, the silent communication drifting through underground threads, the breath of the forest harmonizing with your own. These images settle inside you like spores, tiny, gentle seeds that may unfold into calm long after tonight. You may even sense your thoughts loosening, the way fungi loosen old wood, rigid stories softening, old worries returning to the soil of your mind where they no longer feel heavy. In this state, letting go becomes natural, a quiet exhale that requires no effort. Growth becomes natural too, a slow awakening that needs no rush. As you drift deeper into rest, imagine the mycelial wisdom touching your inner landscape one last time tonight. You do not need to move quickly. You do not need to bloom before you're ready. You do not need to carry what has already turned to soil. You're part of something vast and gentle and continuous. There is peace in understanding the cycles that shape every forest, every organism, every life. That growth follows rest. That renewal follows release. That stillness is not the absence of movement, but the beginning of the next soft unfolding. Fungi have shown you how the world transforms quietly, and how you can too. As the forest within you dims into night, let yourself feel held by its quiet rhythm. Let the calm you've gathered settle into your breath. Let your body soften into the earth beneath you. Let your mind drift like spores carried on a gentle breeze. There is nothing you need to do now, no path to follow, no cycle to complete, only rest, only ease, only the soft return to yourself. And as this long journey comes to its gentle close, let the final truth of the forest guide you into sleep. Everything flows. Sleep in that motion.